Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a pre-show post-edit. Man, it's been a while since we had one of these. Anyway, I just wanted to apologize. Apologize to you all and apologize to my guest. This episode is being released way off schedule. We actually recorded this episode way back in March, let's see, the 22nd? Yeah, the 22nd of March. And I was hoping to have it put out on YouTube about a week later. However, real life got in the way. I found myself in the middle of a move, and let's just say a series of unfortunate events happened to me. Regardless, however, this episode is a fun one. It does talk about the Elsewhere expansion. However, this was at a point where we didn't know what the Elsewhere prologue was going to bring us. So a lot of the ground that we tread may be information that you already know or information that we're actually incorrect on. To which, I apologize again. Completely my fault. I should have accounted for time scheduling and all that stuff to happen. Anyway, hope you guys enjoy the show. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Elder Scrolls Spotlight, a podcast about roleplay, role-playing, and just a little bit of experimentation here on the Elder Scrolls Online MMO-RPG. My name is Mikey, and I'll be your friendly neighborhood commentator for the evening. Tonight, for episode 21, we have a special milestone. We actually have a repeat guest. Joining us way back in episode 3, I talked to this gentleman about his RP, his characters, his views on RP, and what he enjoyed. This time, I bring him back 18 episodes later to talk to him about a whole new array of topics. On today's episode, I'll talk to him about the RP MMO radio podcast, the amount of work the hosts all put into it, and just a little bit more about his views on RP. I'll also confess that this episode is quite experimental, as this marks the first time I'm having a guest return on the show. But considering this man's resume, outgoing personality, and penchant for deeper discussion, I couldn't think of a better guest to join me in case this episode crashes and burns. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have with us Ashen Phoenix returning to the hot seat. Welcome to the show, dude. God help both of us. Here's hoping that this goes well, because Lord knows how many times we need to record that intro.
Hell, yeah. Intros are always fun on account of it only takes, I think, statistically 45 tries to get a one-sentence intro completely recorded.
Where the hell did you get that statistic?
78% of most statistics are actually made up on the spot, and that is statistically where I got that from.
Gotcha. I'm glad to know that this statistic, we have the best words.
Best words.
We know that statistic is most certainly true.
Absolutely.
How you doing? How you been?
Doing really good, doing that podcast for MMOs and role playing in them now for what month is it? 2 years, 3 months?
Yeah, I would say
about
so.
2 years and 2 months longer than I actually thought it would go. So, life's good, family's good. Have more people on our show now, and things are just kind of overall going pretty well. Can't really complain.
There's a definite market difference between when you first started out and where we are now. I think that I remember the first time I read the thread that you posted on ESO-RP, I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. And, felt several pangs of just envy at, how you were able to design it all and the website that you had going for it. And to my surprise, you actually had, I think, about 2 or 3 episodes already recorded when you posted that.
Yes,
up, if I remember correctly,
and none of them good. They were those first, especially those first 4 or 5 episodes. We were still. I have no technical knowledge on podcasting. I'm not in the bills, as they say. Everybody here is just it's all just been Google searches and YouTube videos. And asking a few other podcasters that I had listened to, one of them, which is no longer around, Limit Break Radio, from our brothers and sisters in Final Fantasy XIV. They weren't role players, but our sister MMO kind of.
I think you mentioned them a few times, actually. Weren't they the ones that also pulled you on, like, kind of just tore your podcast to pieces, or was
They
it?
were, yeah. They did a Juxtober, which is one of their show hosts, and actually submitted the podcast to be roasted, so it was all in fun. But yeah, they were vicious. But I actually, speaking with Anira, who actually is in the radio business, and they've moved on to actually do esports news, and I don't know, 70 something radio stations across the country every week now. So they've actually done, which is why they had to stop Final Fantasy 14 podcast that didn't pay their bills. So, but I spoke to him and learned things like, if me and my wife Sib were in the same room recording, your microphones can't face each other. Just all these a few little hints and details on settings to keep the reverb down, which was it was really tough those first few episodes, because you could hear me twice, you could hear her twice. It was like we recorded the whole thing in a giant tunnel sewer. Like, the Ninja Turtles were right next to us. It was pretty awful. But we got the
But it
hang of
had a certain quality of sincerity to it, to be honest with you. I mean, that's one of the reasons I appreciate it in the first place, was regardless of the reverb, like, you guys were just having fun with it,
Oh
and
yeah.
you guys were just going from there. And I appreciated that a part of the podcast, I think. I think most people can connect to that when there is a sort of, how do I say it? Um, I want to say
Authenticity.
authenticity, yes, but also enthusiasm. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you look at some of the YouTubers online, right, they're always hyped up and having outgoing personalities and just going a million miles a second. Especially if they're playing some sort of playthrough and you're
Mm-hmm.
watching with them, you tend to resonate with that energy, I feel. But yours was, I would say, sincere, and you didn't care that you knew what you were doing. You were just having fun with what you were doing, which I think endeared a lot of people, and that's how you grow your fan base over time. I mean, especially now, with the way you guys are going, I would venture to say that you guys are quite successful. And in terms of, as far as RP oriented podcasts go, I don't know very many others in my mind that stand out quite strong as yours.
The only other one I really even know of that's not given, you can find a podcast with role play in D&D or tabletop games that you could throw a rock and you're going to hit one. But when it comes to MMOs, yeah, that was what was the only one I knew of, was one called Musecast, which two girls remix Sakura, and I forget the other one, but they're from Final Fantasy 14, and they did stuff on the role play, or they still do stuff on the role play in Final Fantasy 14. But as much as I love listening to them and do like listening to them, some of their ideas on role play I completely and utterly disagreed with, in that they actually played. I don't know how familiar you are with that world, but Nanamo, which is one of the leaders of the city, and another one, they played another, and another one was Linzo Lamence's leader. But they actually played the in-game. They played established characters. It was like if somebody went and played Antonia Bale in EverQuest, or what's the little assassin chick that's in ESO that everyone loves? Naryu. It's like if someone was out there playing Naryu, and I can't get behind that, man. I appreciate that they have found a small community of people that totally went along with it, but at the same time, everything in me just was twitching. Like, that's not something. That's just not something you do. You can't do that.
I hear you, and I think I don't know, I'd probably verbally say, like, oh, I'd probably think a little less of them, just to be like, that's it's a mark of unoriginality to me, but they're having fun with it, and if they
Right.
had a
They had
fan
fun.
following.
So, it's kind of like anything. If you're not hurting anybody really, but at the same time, I also know when they went to a server that had a lot of established, like Balmung is in Final Fantasy, is their big. That's their role play server. They don't have mega servers like ESO does.
You're right, but that server is so packed that I think
Right.
they opened up a second one with this Mateus, if I remember correctly.
Something like that. But they actually got on Balmung and before they closed it down and locked it up. And when they tried to do the same kind of thing, they met a lot of resistance, I think would be the kind word to put towards it. They got a lot of heat for it, and they started realize. But I mean, they still, again, they do what they want to do, but listening to them, and I appreciated what they do. It made me look for another role play podcast on MMOs, and again, found plenty on D&D and how to do that, or D&D like games, but nothing for MMOs. So I thought, I have a computer and a friend and a wife, so maybe that was the original enthusiasm.
Well, 2 years, 3 months later, I mean, I think we're doing okay.
Yeah, 81 episodes, I think now.
Yeah.
81, yeah.
Jesus. And this isn't, of course, not to discount any of the other Elder Scrolls oriented podcasts out there. I mean, I believe ESO-RP itself was hosting a podcast back in the day. I think that ran on for about 2 odd years or so. And then we can't discount what RPHQ has done in terms of other podcasts.
Not.
I think they had Rock and Roll what was it? Rock and Roll Radio podcast or something like that? Rock and Roll Roleplay, that's what it was.
Rock and Roll Roleplay. Yeah, he did it, and was it Human Floyd did several episodes, and it was good. I think that's the unfortunate thing in adult life. It gets in the way
of course,
doing things that are fun and enjoyable, because then you have to be an adult, and it sucks.
Yeah, I mean, speaking now, the man has several different things on his plate, which
exactly
I can completely understand.
Yeah, there's only so many hours in a day, and you're only one person at the end of it. So but they're still out there, of course, and love Human Floyd. He's great, and all the things him and his people do, and they've helped us, we've helped them. There's always a mutual benefit thing, but and ours wasn't exactly tied to ESO. It just happened to be the game we were playing, but we talked about or we still talk about all Final Fantasy 14. That's about it. That's the only 2 MMOs out there that I know of right now.
I think
there's a Wawo.
Is it? Are you like wow? Is that what you're saying?
No, that's that. No, that can't be it. That sounds weird.
Okay.
I think it's got like 5 or 6 million people. I've no of it in passing.
Is that the game with the pandas and the dwarves and the weird motorcycle things? And
no, you're thinking of Kung Fu Panda.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's right. That's what that is.
Okay,
but yeah, so our home was or is ESO. I'm kind of. I'll be honest. I'm kind of on the ESO thing right now. Just am. I don't. It's been several years, of course, but right now I'm just kind of. I'm hoping for the next expansion. I forget what it's called now, because talking about it live without something in front of me.
Elsewhere.
Thank you. But it looks interesting. I'm actually very curious to see what they do with that. I actually like that they are doing it different this year, with it being a year-long multi-step approach to releasing the story. Because one thing I did learn when I did play Final Fantasy 14 is it's very, very cookie cutter in their release schedule and in their updates and things like that. And to the point where I think the game suffers from it, because you're going to get this, you're going to get the expansion, then you're going to get their, they do all their patches, like an expansion would be 4.0, and then their next big story thing would be like 4.1. But that's like 4 to 6 months later. And then after that, 4 to 6 months after that, you'll get 4.2, which is, again, it's just very small increments. And what they add is always the same. They'll add like a dungeon, and then they'll add a raid, then a dungeon. Then it's that kind of thing, and a couple main story quests to expand the story. And ESO seemed to be getting stuck in that same thing. Although for them it was expansion, DLC, expansion kind of a thing.
Right. And to me, I'd argue that that's almost a rose by a different name.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah.
What comes out of a DLC, right, is maybe a new zone and then new DLC. But often I feel like the zone was underbaked, and I use Murkmire as an example. I think they could have done a bit more with that, but
yeah. I can't disagree. And they seem to be like from ESO's first DLCs. What was it? The one with the Dark Brotherhood. That was a pretty darn big map.
Sure.
That thing was pretty good size. Lots to do in it. and they just seem to shrink in scale from there. So I'm hoping that this is their way of kind of backtracking on that. Maybe I look forward to seeing what they're going to do. It's got obviously it has to be different because this time they're going to add the story modes to it too. So it's not just here's your expansion. Here's again totally what's the high elf place? Totally blank on these. Somerset. Here's Somerset. It's done. You get no more story after you finish this expansion. You're done. So now you get the expansion. You get to a certain point, and then there'll be more story later. So I'm curious to see if are they going to add a new zone? Are they going to add, new areas to the zone that's already out? It should be interesting. So that might pull me back in a little bit more. But I love the world. It's just it's an unfortunate thing with the MMO genre right now. It's very stuck in a rut, very unimaginative, and they all followed WoW's lead, and unfortunately, with following the leader, you're not thinking outside the box anymore.
I agree with that sentiment on a few things. There was that moment in time, I think I would venture to say from like 2012 to 2013-ish, where the MMO market was quite saturated with, shall we say, WoW clones, I guess we can say. I remember when Tor was first marketed, that was being strut around as the MMO that would kill WoW, and they actually went up and their marketing budget was just so blown up that they actually had a good few days of advertisement in Times Square, which I thought was really definitely a landmark to have an MMO advertised in Times Square. Yeah. I thought that was hilarious.
Didn't they actually do they did a live action thing in Times Square, if I remember right? They actually had actors out there, and Sith and Jedi went into Times Square and started fighting each other, didn't they? I seem to recall that video.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think I know which video you're talking about. Yeah.
And to do anything in New York, especially closing down a road, that's going to cost you.
Of course.
I mean, that's going to cost you a lot. So yeah, that's a pretty good sized marketing budget. I mean, it's Star Wars, and you're right, it was viewed as that, but unfortunately, again, they went very, very linear with that one. It wasn't very open worldy. It was really like playing a single player game with a couple of your friends involved. And once you got to the end, I loved it. I loved the stories. It was amazing storytelling, really, really good storytelling. And the role play was pretty fun, but for us role players, they made so many mistakes. The housing was the least of it, but not being able to send a tell or read emotes between Sith and Jedi factions, it was made things so difficult. So everybody's doing their emotes and they're talking and say when you're on Nalhada, it was.
But how bad is that really?
When there's conflict between Jedi and Sith, and you're trying to emote a duel, and something comes up, and you can't send each other in quiet tells or a group, and you then have to air all that dirty laundry out and say, it basically just it would cause everyone's role play to come to a dead stop, because you'd have two people either disagreeing or arguing, trying to get this straightened out, or flat out fighting over it, because role players are always getting along and kind to each other. Not really. At least not when it comes to combat. It just stopped everything cold. Something that could easily have been done in a tell, one-on-one, is taken totally different when someone airs their grievance to a public, at large. And then it changes that dynamic so badly. It really screwed the roleplay community over hard.
I didn't think about that before, but I do agree with you there, because I think but a whole bunch of spats that have happened in the EU community that I've known of, I think probably would have been avoided if there was that whisper function just to reach out at that person at that time. Because what happens when you can't, right? You end up sort of stewing in that negativity. That negativity spreads to your friends, and pretty soon they're all like, "Fuck that guy," and mobbing.
Yeah, because you're still talking to each other in your group behind the scenes, or in your guild chat behind the scenes. Like, did you see what that guy just did? Yeah, you should tell him. As opposed to you just say it to the guy, like, "Hey, I actually meant this. I wasn't stabbing your foot. I was stabbing at your foot. Sorry, my bad." And at that point, it's too late.
I agree with you 100%. But to your point about elsewhere in the expansion, I will admit I am somewhat worried. Not worried, cautious is the better word. Just somewhat cautious about it in that Mr. Schick, who for better or for worse has left his position as lore master due to family obligations, right? Which oddly enough, Human Floyd has had an interview with him,
Oh,
which
really?
is, yes, it's on the RP, it's on the RPHQ YouTube channel. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll have to go look at that.
I gotta poke him later because now we have a new lore master, Mr. Liam Tuttle. I hope that's how you say his name. And not to knock on my Dunmer brothers and sisters, but he seems to, have a sort of a bias for them. He's heavily Dunmer, at least from what I could tell on his social media platforms and such.
Yeah.
And so that makes me wonder, is like, well, gee, how is he gonna tackle the rest of the zones that are outside of Morrowind? But
Yeah.
of course, we got to see how that pans out before I can start throwing eggs at him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least right now, at least it's, their start. Of course, I guess this would be the first guy that's left. His elsewhere would have been his doing, really. He's just kind of these things are in production for 2 years at the least, probably beforehand. So this, it'll be, I'd say at the very earliest, you'd probably have to almost wait till the next expansion before the new lore master guy's influence is really, really felt. Just going off the timelines, because I mean, if they're already they have the next year planned out for stuff. Of course, they're working on it now, but a lot of the writing and voice recording would have to be going on like right this minute, even for what's coming out 6 months to a year from. So it'd have to largely be done.
You're right, and that's a fair assessment to say.
So now if the next one comes out and it's like dark elves everywhere, then you'll know there's your answer. It's like, let's revisit Morrowind 2.0 again. And then you'll be like, okay, this is we're gonna be all dark elves now. Okay, gotcha.
And the interesting thing I find about that dude is that he also subscribes to a bit of what Michael Kirkbride has written, and knows a little bit about Coda too. Which
Coda,
yeah, I mean,
the forbidden document. You shall not. The servants of the temple. They actually had as a joke. It was more of a joke, but it was 1,000 gold fine for anybody that mentioned Coda in character or out of character.
Really?
Yeah, it was more of a joke, just because it was a discussion that always went nowhere. Because you've played ESO. Half the people like Coda, the other half think it's garbage and has nothing to do with Elder Scrolls.
I don't know about the ESO community. I would say about the general Elder Scrolls, but the ESO community or the particular RP community. At least in
that guild, it seemed like it was a 50-50 split. So
really?
Yeah, I could only go off of that because I personally, I don't really care either way. I find it interesting. I think it's cool that the guy loved what he did so much even after he left that he continued to work on it. Also a little stalkerish, like waiting outside your ex-girlfriend's window just hoping to get a peek of her, and then leaving her love letters under her, mattress,
doormat or something,
right?
Yeah, mattress. Yeah.
Hoping she finds them creepily. But yeah, it was. I mean, given it was very tongue in cheek. I got a pretty big out of that, actually.
I think that's all. I think that's very. I want to say cheeky of them. That they had to. I like that. That's funny.
Yeah, but if this guy, if he's a fan of it, I mean, he actually he's in an opportunity in a position now that he could draw from that if he wanted to and make it a thing, I suppose, if he wants to. I guess it depends on how big of a fan is, and given it was, it is their property, so anything written about it, you could, it's kind of like fan fiction. They can do a cease and desist order on you at any time, and since it's your property, if they take it, I don't know. It's a legal loophole. I wouldn't want to jump through, but who knows?
I think in terms of position, though, if I remember correctly, the lore master position, and this is going off of the interview, I think, with between Schick and Floyd is that it was mostly about like he's there. It's the lore master position is more one of supervisor. So if they come to him and they're like, "Hey, we're thinking of putting in dragons and elsewhere," and he's like, "Okay, you could do that. Here's an explainable way of doing it."
Right. Here's your MacGuffin. Right.
Now, were me personally, I don't think I would have gone and done dragons and elsewhere. That's something I heavily object
Yeah,
to.
I seem to remember there was a Elder Scrolls game. It was mildly popular a few years ago that came out that had them in there, and I think briefly they said they hadn't been seen in over 1,000 years or so. So I don't. I mean, given it was only one of those like numbered games, you know, ski resort rim or something. I don't know. It was a lot of snow, a lot of burly people. I don't know.
I know you're joking, but I can't help but have my hackles raised. Like, he's trying me. He's trying me with that joke. He's trying me.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. I'm just here to have fun.
I don't know. It does take away from Skyrim the fact that they're putting in dragons. If anything, you try and associate that with a Skyrim DLC or some shit. But how long have they been teasing dragons now? Since what? Fang Lair and Scale Collar? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I mean, I'll admit the first, because I mean, you have to give Elder Scrolls, if nothing else, it's kind of like with Final Fantasy. Even if you don't like Final Fantasy or the videos they did for SWTOR, the Old Republic, even if you don't like the game, you have to give it to them. Those bastards know how to make a CGI cutscene, and they know how to make it well.
Mm.
And I saw that dragon, I thought, oh, that's awesome. And then my second thought was, that shouldn't be possible. So yeah, no, I understand. I'm a role player, so yeah, I kind of like the lore to be consistent as well. But I guess we'll find out when we play through the storyline how they MacGuffined those in there. Maybe they were, I'm guessing they were 3 dragons because they said 3. I've only seen the 3, so 3 dragons that somehow got locked away. They're separate from the Skyrim dragons and the Dragonborn and the Fus Rodaws. There's some other species of dragon, I'm just guessing, but I have a feeling that's the direction it's going to go. Whether and you can do that stuff in your lore is just kind of like in roleplay. You can do those kind of like out there stretches. It's just in the approach and the storytelling if the audience is going to believe it or not. So I guess we'll have to find out on that one.
I agree with you. As far as the success of elsewhere, if that does bring anything new to the table, I would say that in terms of story, which I think we can agree that Elder Scrolls has always been a story-oriented game, including Elder Scrolls Online.
Oh yeah. I
mean, PvP is not exactly the best thing in this game. It works, but it's not the best thing in this game. I think that they'd be if they hit the storyline thread of that holds this game together pretty well, then perhaps they might be able to do it well. I am not exactly all that optimistic. Yeah, that's the word.
Yeah.
Given their, I don't want to say previous track record, but it's like it never lives up to the hype, if that makes sense. Like seldom is it that an expansion lives up to the hype. Of this, I'm willing to acknowledge, but if it does live up to the hype, then I would say that yeah, there we go. They found their stride again. Excuse me.
Yeah, and I would like to think. I mean, I really enjoyed the Morrowind, obviously. And I'm not one of those people. Like, I never played Elder Scrolls 3. My first Elder Scrolls game was Elder Scrolls Oblivion. I played that for about a couple hours and just got bored with it, and also tired of looking at the giant, chubby-cheeked potato head kids that they had put in the game. I didn't have it on PC, so there was no modding at the time. But I didn't get into it. Skyrim I got into. I liked the Fallout series, obviously same company, Bethesda. So that's the reason I gave Skyrim a try, was because I had fallen in love with Fallout 3. And
you've been playing Fallout 76 a lot, haven't you?
Yeah, play that actually a lot. Yes, it is. It is a dumpster fire of a coded game, but at the same time, it's fun. I don't play it as much as my wife does and our other co-host Strafay, but they actually have a good time with it. They play that a good amount because it's just playing Fallout with friends, really. Narrative wise, it does not hold up. The complaints people have of the no NPCs is a legitimate one because you're following somebody. Hey, come down to here. We have to get this water reclamation plant up and running. Hopefully you can get there to help me in time. It's only one of two things. It's either going to be a dead body and a voice recorder, or the person was a robot the whole time, or somehow turned into a robot. Because that's the only option. There's robots and there's voice recordings and there's dead body. The only other living fleshy person is another player.
Isn't that what they were driving for? Was just like a player-driven community, and therefore they did away with NPCs to help facilitate that. That sounds like that sounds like a bet they were trying to make, but they completely lost.
Right. Well, no, they did do that. Unfortunately, apparently they had never played an online game before Fallout 76 and didn't realize that people playing online, especially when you can hear them talking over the voice mics, not good. You get a lot of really annoying people, and Giant Balls 76 is not a replacement for an interesting and funny character as they have in the Elder Scrolls and Fallout universe typically.
Right.
There's no comparison, and that falls completely flat. I have mine turned off. I don't talk if I can help it. I talk to the people I'm in group with, but that's about it. So yeah, it's a fun game. I know a couple of our listeners have actually gotten it and downloaded it, and they've tried it out, and they're like, it's actually fun. All the reviews said that this wasn't even fun. I said, well, it's a dumpster fire. It glitches on you. It logs you out. It closes down for no damn reason right in the middle of nothing. But when it works, it's fun. It's not what I think they're going to put on their advertising.
It works, but it's fun. That's the tagline.
It's a dumpster fire, but it's a fun dumpster fire. It's like a dumpster fire full of cotton candy caught on fire. So at least it smells good, But yes, it's those types of games with their stories. You just can't. You have to have that stuff. If you're even online games, MMOs, they have a story. They have to have a story. When they don't have a story, they're awful.
Would you count Fallout 76 as an MMO?
No, I would say it's more of I'd actually put it in the closer vein of things like The Division or Destiny, like the games of service, as they call them now. It's really more along the lines of that, because it's not a persistent world. You get thrown into a server or a shard, for lack of a better term, and it's completely random. You don't get to pick them. You're thrown in there with people that are just thrown in there with you. So no, you have your persistent base, but if someone builds it down the hill, or you see one built down the hill, you log out, you log in, you're automatically on another, server shard thing, and they're gone. So there's no consistency of anything you get with an MMO, really. And the complete and utter lack of typing and things like that. We did try to do that RP in it. Fallout 76 live action RP, and that was
how does that work, live action exactly?
So we it's on our YouTube page. We actually were playing the game, the four of us, the four hosts from RPM Radio, and we just actually, as you and I are talking, and I was playing the game and recording it all, voiced our characters. We were role playing as if we were the character with our voices. The same thing you would do with text and things like that. But we had to do it in the style of the old school radio dramas, or the really bad Hanna-Barbera cartoons back in the day. Wow, what is that over there? Hold on, I need to go take a look. Of course, on the screen, we're moving towards it. Oh, it's a skull. Oh, this guy's dead. Mostly it was actually all of us insulting each other in character, trying to play the over-the-top thing. I was the kind of the grumpy old security guard that, seen it all, done it all, survived, had been there before the fall. The others were kind of younger characters and things like that. So that was, we did it like that. It was fun. It was weird, but I don't know if I don't think I would be able to do that on a consistent basis, especially if it was supposed to be serious. Like, I enjoy serious role play and like Elder Scrolls and things like that. So having a serious, tender, or interesting conversation, as you could tell, we all stumble over our words. And when you're trying to come up with it on the spot, typing gives you a little bit more time to think. It makes you sound not dumb. Whereas when you're talking, you sound sort of kind of dumb when you're trying to stay in character and always be the gruff, world-bound security guard, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but I think you could probably pull it off pretty well because you have some, shall we say, voice acting talents.
Eh.
I mean, you do a pretty good Christopher Walken impression.
Oh, well, thank you. You know, you're a scholar and a gentleman.
You were able to flex those voice acting muscles every now and again when you decide to do like a crazy skit just to get some laughs. I always think you get some laughs too. For our listeners who don't really know, Ash did a really good Christopher Walken impression for I think the intro of the ERP episode, if I remember correctly.
I think it was the ERP or it was a Valentine's Day one. I think it was the ERP one, yeah.
Yeah. They were both similar in nature because you were trying the character in the skit was trying to basically get the character to get you to quote unquote relax, I think. But you kind of just took it a little bit over the top with the ERP episode, which, that probably to me is one of my favorites for personal reasons, but that's just me.
Yeah, well, I fully and completely admit I completely ripped it off from actual Christopher Walken when he did the same exact thing on the SNL when it was all from the perspective of the woman being the camera and him trying to, oh wow, look at you, no, come in, take off your coat, kind of a thing. And then she always inevitably ran.
I don't think I've never watched SNL. In fact,
this was back when SNL was funny, so it was in the 90s.
90s.
Yeah, that might be why you missed it. Yeah,
the 80s and 90s, I think is where. Funnily enough, that's where Eddie Murphy got his start. Right, was on SNL. Yeah,
a lot of them. Eddie Murphy. Yeah, but this was the Mike Myers, Adam Sandler, Chris Farley.
Rest in peace to that guy.
Yeah, this was in that era that really before the Will Ferrells and Tina Feys and the other people that just aren't funny.
You don't think Will Ferrell's funny?
He was. I just got bored of. It's the same shtick over and over again.
He's got a podcast in his Ron Burgundy persona. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah. See, and I liked the first Ron Burgundy to a point, and then I just got bored. I just don't think he's funny anymore. It's just like it's the same thing over and over. I can only watch a grown man play the mentality of an 8-year-old so many times before it's like, all right, I get it. You're not smart. It's your character. You're not smart, but and I like him. He does great. I loved his old George W. Bush's and things like that. He was really great as those, but I just got tired of him. Same with Adam Sandler. It's like, oh, look how crazy he is, and he's got a cucumber for a hand, and I get it.
I think Adam Sandler has probably aged the worst out of the worst comedians. I probably shouldn't say that, but I think that's probably safe to say. And granted, his last movie that I saw was Pixels, which was an absolute dumpster fire of a movie.
I was dumb enough to take my daughter's advice and watch one of the Netflix ones he did.
Oh, his Netflix specials.
They were movies, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
He did a few movies on Netflix, really?
2 or 3, yeah.
Boy.
Physically painful to sit through. It was I actually had to be revived through the paddles. There was an adrenaline shot to my heart, but thankfully I did make it out of the coma that the movie put me into. It was one with the wolf boy from the Twilight series was in it as well, and he played some sort of dumb guy. They were in the Old West. I don't remember most of it. Again, coma. So yeah, the Christopher Walken was from back when that show was when things were funny on SNL.
Okay, here let's move on from all that humongous tangent because I love my tangents, but we gotta. I'm pretty sure
something about role play. Yeah,
it happens. Be like, what the hell, dude? Get to the damn point or get to the content, I guess. So, you started as let's see what'll happen when you decided to make RP MMO radio. What would you say if you could list 5 things that you've learned from undertaking the program? What would those 5 things be?
Let's see that you really have to learn to roll with the punches. We do ours live. Like this year. Technically, we're recording live, but if something like right now, if your connection cut out, we could pick it up and you could splice it together. No one would be the wiser. I can do that, but at the same time, we do the show live as well, so that we can have people call in if they have something they want to add to it. We wanted the whole show to be open from the get go to all role players. So that's one of the things we use Discord for, to do that. And that we're in 3 different states. So rolling with the punches and understanding that while as annoying as technical difficulties are, you got to keep your head, keep your crap together, and work through it, and you can straighten it out. That was a big one. Quality, you have to have quality. Like with this, what you're doing right here. If I sounded like I was far away from my microphone and everything was echoing horribly, I would hope you would say something and we would try to straighten that out. Now, when people call in, we don't worry about that too much. They're just calling in. But for the main hosts, quality is key. I try to keep everybody's voice on the same level so that no one's blowing out someone else's ears by accident. Keep everything from, again, the echoes, keep as best we can the robo voice of what happens over the internet when someone's connection goes bad, typically Jazz, because she lives out in the middle of BFE in Iowa. I think it takes 4 days in a jade monkey, along with a series of maps in order to find where she actually lives. But quality is key. I don't know how many podcasts you guys listen to. You listen to a podcast, so clearly you listen to one, and it's a great one. You should keep listening to this podcast. But a lot of them, especially the ones that aren't like professional grade, things like that. And by no means am I saying that we're professional, because we're not.
But you're getting better at it. And that's
right.
I think that counts for something.
Right. Well, and that's what we always strive for. We always got to strive to be better. But the quality of a lot of podcasts, especially ones that are from at home, they sound like they're being recorded from inside a tin can.
Right.
And they don't do the very basic and easy things you should do to make it. I've got friends that do it. One that's on horror stuff, and it's literally them sitting around one microphone in the middle of an empty room. And it sounds like a bunch of people sitting around one microphone in the middle of an empty room, because it echoes, it reverbs. There's all sorts of really distracting things. And when your main focus is to be heard and it's in audio form, you want to take away as many distractions as you possibly can. I mean, if I had my, if your dog or cat started barking in the background, which happens on the show because so many people, if it happened the whole time, it's just distracting. And typically you're probably going to at least lose somebody's attention, because they can't. I don't know about you, but if you're trying to sleep at night and there's a dripping faucet, it doesn't matter how quiet it is. It's the loudest damn thing in the entire house that night is that one little drip every 2 seconds. And you can't not hear it. If that makes sense. I think 3 negatives makes a positive. I'm pretty sure. Good on that math. But so quality, you have to, we're always working on our quality. I will say another thing is, at least the people that have listened and really enjoy the show, they're great. They're the listeners and stuff like that. They're beyond nice. They have kind words to say. If we ask for something, there's typically a few of them. Again, you're not going to get 100%. Nobody gets 100% participation, but I know there's a lot of people that listen that don't ever contact us. I know there's a lot of podcasts I listen to that I'm not like every episode like, hey, how's it going, Mike Rowe? I enjoy his podcast, but I'm not
that
typing
dude
him
is
out
a
every
national
day.
hero, by the way.
Oh, he's a treasure. He's got the voice of what I assume the pantheon of Greek gods would sound like if you combined them into one human being.
I agree wholeheartedly with that statement.
I've loved him since Dirty Jobs. He's just an awesome dude. But again, love his podcast too. It's a great little podcast, 10 minutes long, about stories from around the country and around the world. And I liked it, but I'm not going to interact with it.
Sure.
Given our format's a little more interactive, so getting our listeners to interact with us is awesome. Indigo Jules, Jay the Exile, who is also ESO, obviously. Sabea from there, from Tribunal. Just Gangsy Girl, I see her in here. You, obviously. I mean, just
Yeah, you should probably start banning me from the show. It's like,
yeah.
that guy's an asshole. Well, let me ask you this. In terms of guests, do you usually get like a list of usual suspects, or do you think that there's always like, you sure you get return guests, right, that pop by every now and again, but you don't get regulars? Does that make sense? Have I lost you?
Yeah, we've got several that return, but there's really no one that like there's no one that's like calling in every episode or anything like that. That's like, with something to say every single time. They typically only do it when they got something to add.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I have learned too is you and I, we're doing this right here. You're just some guy in your house right now, looking at a computer screen, reading stuff, talking to another guy, looking at a computer, talking back to you. I worked today. I took a nap before this. I watched some Babylon 5. I played Division. I'm just a person. There's nothing special about me or you other than the fact that we were dumb enough to think, maybe someone would want to hear and listen to us. So when people call in, one of the craziest things that is also very flattering is how nervous people get. I don't know if you've ever listened to talk radio or your local radio, your morning radio station, and your people, they're, oh gosh, I'm so nervous. I'm sorry. We've had that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always like, dude, don't be nervous. Trust me, we're nothing special. Just talk. It's okay. Just have fun. It's cool. Don't worry about it. Just don't be. There's literally no reason to be nervous. If you were face to face right now,
I don't know about that. If let's say 50 other people were listening to you, live, I would probably.
We don't tell them that. We don't tell them that part. we leave that out. We don't focus on that.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Is we try to remind them. It's like it's just right as far as you're concerned. You're just talking to me. Don't worry. There's other people listening. They don't even matter. Just focus on one thing and the hosts. All of us. I mean, again, we're not from radio. We don't have a radio background. We're not. Jazz, I guess. I think back. She's one of our older. She's above the age of 50. So I think back in the 1840s, she was in acting and things like that and drama. So she's at least been on stage before, but even she, got butterflies, especially at the very beginning. And it took a full year to really start to just be able to not think about that. My wife, Sib, even now, she's told me I have to forget that people are going to hear this later. Otherwise I start getting nervous and I clam up.
Right.
So I do understand that. But at the same time, it's just I'm just a postal worker that likes role playing in MMOs and is a gaming nerd. So it's both funny and flattering at the same time, and it's cool.
It is cool. To your point about how Sib looks at it all, one of the things I think with me and her when we did our episode together, I think I had to spend about an hour to an hour and a half just kind of like getting her comfortable and and don't get me wrong, she's sweetest thing ever,
she is,
and she's a complete panda in every sense of the word, but it was interesting just to slowly get her acclimated to just a one-on-one conversation, which I don't know why, but apparently it's quite different from the way you guys do things, which is, you guys are all talking together and I'm just talking together. Well, actually, no, I could see a few marked differences now that I think about it, but
yeah. Well, yeah, what you're doing is a literal. It's an interview. You're interviewing somebody. You've got a series of questions. I could see why people would get nervous with that. For me, as far as I'm concerned, I'm just talking with another nerdy guy that really likes roleplay. So that's how I get through it. It's no big deal. But yeah, I can, in the talk show format as opposed to an interview format, I can see where that might. I imagine you've probably had a few people just like Sib, where you've had to talk them off the cliff and be like, it's okay, it's all right. You're gonna be okay. It's just for fun.
I mean, but that's the whole thing about preparation and all. It's just preparation and I find transparency usually works, because one thing I've learned is that there's this thing about conversations where you can never get a good conversation going if you don't come from a place of goodwill. If you come from a place of ill will, the other person is going to pick up on that, be it through some sort of, if we're just talking to each other through a computer or in real life, they will get on their defenses. They will, be hostile. So that's what our transparency of just sort of saying like, I'm just some nerdy asshole who's interested in role playing and, nothing else to do with his time, I think puts them at ease just a little bit. But then they start thinking about, well, shit, other people are going to hear how I formulate my ideas. And, majority of the roleplay community, not majority, but the sizable chunk of the roleplay community are introverts, right? So,
yes.
Which is an interesting paradox, I think. It's a very interesting paradox, but
it is. I would consider is all this. I'm a very introvert, especially in my real life. I'm very introverted. I enjoy talking, but I don't enjoy doing things, if that makes sense. Like, one of the best feelings I ever have in my life is when I make plans with somebody in like the real world, and for some reason they have to cancel. It's fantastic. It's like, I got my whole night. Awesome. I mean, no, well, maybe next time. Damn, sorry. I was so looking forward to doing whatever with you. I don't know why. It's not healthy, but I do. I do I do like being at home. I like something about having something planned that just throws you off at times,
I think it's more of the obligation sort of thing.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
It's still going to be fun, but you got to do it. You promised, and it's the stupidest thing. But yeah, a lot of introverts in roleplay, which is kind of gives why roleplay is so good for so many of our people. Is it gives us an outlet and we're still communicating with other living human beings as opposed to I don't watching the Buffy the Vampire Slayers season 1 through 7 for the 14th time and making a new Valhalla style tinfoil hat. So we don't get to that level because at least we're still having human action. We still have friends, even if they're online, things like that. And that's really one of the great things about the role play and that I've always enjoyed is I've met a lot of really interesting people that I don't think if it wasn't for the MMO I met them through, even if I lived next door to them, I don't think I would have got to know them as well as I did through the game.
I can understand where you're coming from there. I would venture to say it's because you sort of have like I don't want to say a shield, but there is a barrier between you and that other person, and that barrier is permissible if you let it be permissible. Whereas in physical interaction, it's kind of like it's a little bit harder to let people in or let people out just because you're present to them physically, which may or may not be a bad thing depending on how you look at it. I for one believe that social interaction is still important, even if it seems to be like we're heading towards where pretty much everyone will be isolated from each other in a world of paradoxical.
Yeah, we're all heading toward Ready Player One, where everyone's got their VR headset on and is completely ignoring everything around them. Yeah,
I mean, yeah, that, and not only, but I mean with social media, and I don't want to go on a huge rail against social media, but it's like the more we get entrenched in connections and echo chambers and all that, the more paradoxically ends up being isolated from each other. It's really, really interesting just watching all that, but that's neither here nor there.
Right.
So you said that rolling with the punches, quality. What else?
Let's see here. But the listeners too, the audience and the followers of us, they're fantastic. It's been a joy to actually get to meet a lot of them again. People out the podcast, even I wouldn't have got to meet you, for example. Even though we both played the same game, what are the odds that I would have in such a mega server thing that I may have ever bumped into you? Probably not that great. I'm sure there's a lot of people no one else has met, and they probably could have been playing the games for the last 5 years straight, and they'll never have met. So that's kind of been that's been a really cool thing. Not so much a learning thing, but I learned new people. There we go.
Fudge that one. New people.
I learned new people. That's a thing.
As a new way of doing the English.
English, yes. I speak goodly. My English teachers always said that no, don't do that. I just took it as a compliment and a positive. Let's see. The other thing, people can be kind of negative when it's something that they just don't want to like. I know if we've had a few trolls, we've had a few, people just talking about the show that get up in arms about certain things, and instead of having an adult conversation, which is something we always welcome. That's why one of the reasons we have phone lines is I will let anybody come on and they can say anything they want as long as they're not blurting out the N-word like that one stupid person did, who we had to upgrade all our security for afterwards.
Is he the reason why, this is just a genuine question, but he's the reason why we have call screening now, right?
That's the reason we have a call screen. Very few episodes later, for a while, we just had somebody came in, one of the Sib or Jazz or someone would jump up there and make sure all their stuff worked. Then but now we've got Rahanar, who, we had Rahanar. He's unfortunately been sick lately and in the hospital with a bunch of personal issues. But
oh no, hope you
yeah,
get better, dude.
Yeah, I hope he does too. I hope he does. He is right now. He's recovering.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So, but him and Yunfei, but we still do that. We had to. I mean, it was the stuff that was put on there was just vile. I'm not going to repeat it because, frankly, it wouldn't be worth repeating. But it was vile. And I don't even honestly know if it was another role player or anything. It could have just been somebody that saw us on Twitch and they were just being a-holes. So, but after that, we had to increase. Sound like a convention center. We had to increase security and hire bodyguards, but we got a lot of bots. We had to go do the call screeners, and also the other thing for call screeners to make sure when people call in that their mic is working, so that we don't bring them on like hello.
Yeah,
hello. Yeah,
that's usually. I would imagine that's been awkward when you run into it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can play it off, but I know it's frustrating on the other end because everybody wants to have their stuff work when they call in, and that they don't want to be embarrassed. Sure. And I just said their name on the air, and then they're like, "And his stuff doesn't work." All right, well, moving on. So with a call screener, we had to do that, but that was. The negativity is something I knew. That's one of the things I joked about from the very beginning. When we started, I said, we will not have made this until we have trolls.
Right.
Fortunately, our first really big troll was the Mount Vesuvius of trolls. But, so there was that little bit. But, it did remind me of how real negative some role players can be. It's not even role players, just people in general,
but
especially
have you run
internet
into that
people.
sort of negativity, the people that just want to hate into everything in the guests, though? I don't think you have.
Not in the guests. No, I've seen it in people that, I've talked about the show after the fact and things like that down, like ESO-RP and stuff like that. There's been a few negative comments here and there, and that's fine. I don't expect everybody to agree with our way of thinking in role play. I will say I do think, given the majority of the community, probably 90% or more would probably thinks along the same lines, at least in generality. Generally. But there, and maybe with a nuance, things would starts to deviate and shift a little. But overall, you just have fun. You don't need to take it too seriously, but you do need to take it seriously enough that you're not like the guy Jazz had bumped into a week ago in Random Rift In when he demanded that his character had to win no matter what in a fight. And she's like, well, no, that's not, that's not how it works. You just because you initiated the fight doesn't mean you automatically win. And they had to retcon it. So things like that. Those, and then he ends up telling her, well, it's just role play. Chill out, man. Don't worry about it. Just don't take it so seriously. It's like, well, you have to take it a little seriously. It's the same reason you have to follow the lore of the game. You can't start coming in here with time wizards and TARDISes and fake RoboCops of clockwork armor and whatever you want to come. Although that one,
Well, that last thing is the thing.
that one has happened.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like if they start coming in like, you will call me TikTok cop. I don't know. It starts to get a little
where
out
that
there.
came from, but okay, RoboCop, TikTok cop, duh.
There you go.
Gotcha.
Yeah, gotcha. Keep up, man. Keep up. Come on. But those you have to both take it seriously to a certain extent and at the same time be lenient with it. So I remembering that about just people in general, like I don't mind people bashing on the show. It's not. Our humor is not for everybody. You can't just, it's with anything. You can't please all the people all the time. You can't even try. You got to do your thing. The people that get it will get it. The people that don't will probably flame you on Reddit.
Do you get flamed on Reddit?
I don't know. I don't even visit Reddit. I'll be
I was
honest
like,
with
you
you.
guys don't have a Reddit thread.
No.
No.
Now I actually wonder, maybe I should check that. I don't know. Maybe we do. I have no idea. I'd have to go to Reddit, which cesspool of humanity, and also cat pictures. Really good cat pictures. Let's see. And the fifth thing, man, I should have probably thought of these ahead of time or something.
Well, to be fair, it was a perversion of a question that I was going to ask you, but I'm an asshole, so.
Man, just set me up for failure. Set me up for failure. No,
it's what I do.
It's all good.
Catch you with your pants down in order to force you to think. That's not exactly true,
that came out completely wrong there. You're just assuming I'm wearing pants.
Joke's on you. I'm not wearing pants.
That's right. Let's see. Fifth thing. Gosh, I really don't know. Well, okay, I'll tell you what. The other thing I've learned is I have an amazing group of friends around me, to be honest with you. No one's had a radio background. Jazz, I've known her since EverQuest 2, 2005-ish, so 13 years. Sibs, my wife, we've been married for 8 years this month, actually, just about a week ago.
Happy belated anniversary to
Thank
both
you.
of you.
Yes, thank you. So, I pitched the idea to them. They both said, sure.
You crazy bastard.
Pretty much. Again, the ongoing joke is neither one of them thought it was, they thought I was insane and that there was no way that this was going to actually work at all, period. Get anybody to listen to, let alone thousands of downloads and actual viewers and people calling in live and all this stuff that we've actually managed to do. And then bringing in other people like Strafe, who I knew from EverQuest 2 as well. Kishmis Roger from Servants of the Temple. He was there for a time. Unfortunately, he had to go out because real life, he started the show and he had Saturdays off. It was fantastic. 3 weeks in, he started having to work Saturdays. And that was pretty much, he was only able to do it so many times after that. And so he, when we re-upped the show again for the next year, he stepped down and we brought in my other friend who I've known, Yunfei, who's our newest cast member now. And her husband is Rohanar, who's the call screener. So I knew her back from EverQuest 2 as well. So known her for a decade. So it just made me realize I've got an amazing group of friends that have adapted very well to a format and way of talking that does not come easy. I mean, like you said earlier, people get nervous in front of audiences, in front of crowds, or when they start thinking that, again, hundreds and thousands of downloads. So I don't know how many hundreds of people that actually translates into individually. Hello to our people over in Portugal, which was strange that there was several dozen from there, but okay.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually kind of neat. There's some of the statistics you could see of where things are downloaded. Funny enough, I think it's America, Canada, and strangely enough, I think the third or fourth one is typically Ireland. It's our most downloaded countries.
Really?
Right. I know. I thought it would be Australia. We got a lot of Aussie listeners. you
There is
kangaroo punching bastards.
there is a sizable Aussie RP community, I would say, here in Elder Scrolls anyway, which I don't know, it's like not that I mean to say go get your own server, but it's more like, what are you doing here, guys? It's
Yeah.
like the heyday is past your time zones, but here they are, dedicated as all fuck just to
Oh
make it.
yeah.
It's beautiful to see, but at the same time, I can't help but feel like those poor guys staying up till
Yeah.
like
It's like 3 a.m. where you are, and it's like 5 here.
it's tomorrow where they live, you
Like
know?
you're in the future. Give me the numbers and tell me who wins the Super Bowl. But yeah, so yeah, it's just an amazing, amazing wife, amazing group of friends that have stuck together, listened to my bullshit rants and silly, stupid ideas for, topics and things that we can talk on, and come up with a bunch of great content on their own, and just been nothing but supportive and keeping everything going. And, they're actually having fun with it. They really enjoy doing it. And I really worried about that at first because, again, talking with the LBR guy and Nero, they did theirs on Final Fantasy 14, and one of his biggest problems was in the course of them doing their podcast, they had a few, like him and two others, but they kept people would come in and then they would stop showing up. The hosts, as hosts, even.
So it was a revolving door policy.
Right. It was a constant revolving door. And we've managed to have at least our 3 core. And then we added Strafe, so he's been solid. And then Kishmas, real life comes first. Obviously, it's the key role in role play. So he had to do that. And then now we have Yunfei. But I don't pay them. Trust me, they're not getting paid. I don't make enough money to pay anybody. And
it'd be great if you did.
I would love to be able to. But the Patreon largely goes to just the web hosting and the podcast hosting, which is, about $200 a year. That's pretty much where all it goes. And if the LBR guys, until they really got, I think at their height, they were $2,000 on Patreon a month. And he actually gave them like $40 each for, I don't know, the month or episode. I forget what it was. But he actually, when he started paying them, he got consistent people, and their show really, really took off. And it was great. And I really enjoyed it. Roleplay, for one, doing a podcast specifically on Final Fantasy is going to get you a much broader audience than just roleplay, which we are a very small community. Even in each MMO, it's going to be a very small subset of a much larger community. And even of that subset of role players, how many of them are going to listen to a podcast or watch something on YouTube or things like that?
Exactly. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, this podcast itself, it's I've gotten more than a few suggestions say, why don't you have some video content to go along with this since you're posting on YouTube? I'm like, man, this is shit you can listen to at like the doctor's office or what have you, or like on the drive to work, And that's the sort of thing when it comes to when it comes to an RP oriented podcast, what are you going to show exactly? I mean, if it's with PvP or PvE, if that's the oriented thing, then sure, you can show that you can showcase that as part of being the action, but RP, I don't know. That's more of a passive medium,
Yeah, like T the Khajiit. She's a role player and she streams. Right. She's fantastic. She's really successful as a streamer of ESO.
Right.
But when it comes to streaming somebody role playing, it's literally just looking at somebody standing still. It's like a screenshot. Basically, you may as well be a screenshot and reading what other people are saying in a tiny little chat window.
Right. I'll tell you what, though. There was somebody who was able to, and again, I keep pulling him up, but there was somebody who was able to sort of make it human Floyd, of course, with Let's RP and Elder Scrolls, right? If you remember, he did that thing with.
Yeah, we did one episode with him actually.
Right.
Yeah, and it was a lot of fun, and it worked. But even with that, it's a very difficult format because how many people are actually going to may actually sit through that. It was great. Now I had a great time doing it, and I actually did. Yeah, I was part of it. I watched it, but that's why we wanted to try the thing I was talking about earlier with Fallout 76, where it was both visual and audio role playing to see how that would work, if it would be a better format for it. And I think with some effort, it could be, but at the same time, you're having to improv, you're having to stay in character, you're having to keep, if you're doing an accent, you have to keep up with it. If you're only streaming through one guy's view, so you've got to be both character and cameraman at the same time.
I never imagined how difficult that might be, being both cameraman and
Right.
RPing as well.
Yeah, so I had to, even because I'm really sort of a rush in there and kill everybody kind of a player, but I had to constantly keep back, and so that I can keep them in frame, things like that. So it's, it was, and given I did not do it all the time because I would forget. Again, it was more of a test thing, and it was fun. We really need to do it again. We actually got some pretty positive feedback, and people were fairly entertained by it. But when it comes to doing, just typing out role play, it can be done. Like the great thing with Floyd was that he did commentary along with it, which does help. But it doesn't seem like there's a really good and pure way to, short of, I don't know, acting out and reading every line, that at least of the role play perhaps, and actually acting it out like an audiobook almost. Maybe that I've considered that, but that seems that seems like a lot of work.
An audio drama for sure would be
right. It would be almost like that instead.
Yeah.
But again, but at the same time, it would have to either be heavily edited, because then there'd be pauses while you're waiting for the next line of text that somebody's going to come up, and you wouldn't be able to do it in certain situations where you got text scroll, because then you just get completely lost as you're trying to read it out loud. It would, who's no telling what you would miss. So yeah, it's one of those. I wish there was a better way to make MMO roleplay like into a video, but I hope somebody figures it out, somebody far smarter than me, but I've not come up with a way so far myself.
Going back to the questions, you keep getting on tangents, which is great. You actually answered a few, because the next question was like, oh yeah, it started out with you, Jazz, and Sib.
Oh yeah.
And then you explained how Kishmish and came, then subsequently left, and then Strafei and Yunfei were able to come in, as well as Rahanar. Rahanar is like, this is probably a bad analogy, but I would say when you liken Rahanar to be the call screener, I think he's more like the designated driver while you guys are all getting shit-faced. You know what I mean? Because
yeah, he kind of, yeah.
It's an underappreciated role, but definitely an important one, I would say.
Yeah, no, trust me, I thank him constantly, because again, when you have somebody come on your show and they used, I don't know what they did, but when they used a loophole that made text to speech start talking and looped it over and over and spammed it, and you have somebody saying the N-word constantly over your live thing on Twitch, given I edit it out in the podcast, you don't hear that, but everybody hearing it live, it was awful. I mean, it was really bad. So between the bots and him, he really is, he's the security, he call it security would almost be better, but it sounds really weird on a talk show. But without him,
the gatekeeper, I would say.
Yeah, he's a gatekeeper. So that it keeps that from ever happening again. And it's very, very, very important, unfortunately, that we have to do that. But that's the internet these days, unfortunately. There's a lot of people that use words that they don't know the true meaning of it, or they do, and they only use it just to tick other people off and make other people's lives miserable just for the sake of enjoyment, which is kind of sad, really. But there's a lot of people out there.
Right. To your point of having a good group of friends to do it with, what do you think it is about your co-hosts that you're just able to get along with them so well that you can all continuously just bounce off each other? Because that definitely happens in your show, I would say. And to be able to keep going on for 80 odd episodes, it's kind of a landmark when you think about it.
I guess it kind of, I suppose it would be. Now that you're making me think about it, don't make me think. I didn't know there's going to be thinking involved when I said that I do this. It hurts.
Let me restate the question, because I don't feel that I worded it right. So the chemistry between you all is certainly something that helps the podcast. That has certainly helped the podcast longevity, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think it is about the chemistry that keeps you guys going?
Again, we've known each other for so long. I'm married to one. I've known the others. I've known each of the others on the show for a decade or more, and that makes we've role played together for that entire time. Given off and on after EverQuest 2 kind of shit the bed, but even then we would go to other things like Star Wars and God help us, Age of Conan. That was pre-Dong Sliders before the newest one, of course. But the other thing is that we've known each other for so long, and from the get-go I've told them that this is a radio show, a podcast thing. We're here to, our rules are first and foremost to be entertaining and to try to be try hard to be funny. It's not always going to be funny. It's going to be really hit and miss, but entertainment is the first thing of our show. That was the core mission statement, if we were going to be corporate about it. And then after that was to inform and, teach and things like that. But without the entertainment bit, the rest of it, you're not going to get anybody to stick around. Like, again, going to other podcasts is where I learned this from, is there's some great podcasts with some great information out there, lore podcasts and stuff from things. I don't even remember which ones. There's some that are really good on Elder Scrolls lore, and there's some that have really good lore on Elder Scrolls, but their delivery is so cut and dry and just unentertaining that you tend to zone out. And it's kind of like listening to PBS or NPR. It's just, you start to slowly fall asleep. And no matter how good the information is about the Altmer, it's so we have to be entertaining, and then we inform. And we have to in order to be entertaining, kind of like disc jockeys on the radio, we kind of got to play it up a little bit. Am I an asshole? Yeah, I'm an asshole. Am I as big an asshole as I am on the show in real life? No, I'm not. I wouldn't have a job, no matter how much they deserve to hear what I have to say.
It's funny that you say that you have to play it up. I never would have guessed that you were playing it up, or that any of you were playing it up. I mean, I understand, sure, there is a need to entertain, of course, fine. But really, to play it up, I never thought that
a little bit. It's not as drastic as some people, like some things are made out to be. But yeah, me constantly bashing on some of them all the time. Okay, yes, I do. Trust me, even when we're talking one-on-one, I tease them just pretty much how you and I are talking. It's the same way I tease you and things like that. It's my second language is teasing and sarcasm. So I know 3 languages, 4 if you also count bad English. But I play up the kind of the grumpy asshole role just a little bit, just because it's kind of entertaining and I think it's funny. So yeah, just a little bit. But you kind of do it. We're performing. You have to think of it like a performance in a lot of ways. And while you are still being yourself, you kind of go that extra step, something that you wouldn't be able to do in quote unquote the real life world. The insults and things that the misogynistic stuff I say to Jazz. Nobody should ever say that to a woman in the real world. It's not. I would highly advise against it. When I tell her, hey, the only reason I know you can say that is because as a man, I'm allowing it, right?
Yeah.
Typically, that would be the last thing you said to your friend, but I
don't know. I mean, in jest, yes.
Right.
But
I can with her, I can say it almost as if I actually mean it, and she knows because we've known each other so long, and because we're doing the show live, that I'm, of course I don't mean that, but it's funny. It's funny to think that somebody might actually say that to somebody, and we also have the policy that, like, listen, if anything's said on the show and it does go too far, bring it up after the show, and we'll cut back on it. And so far, so good. Nobody's actually had any problems. Like, okay, listen, wow, that went way too far. But a lot of that is because I think a lot of adults, their day-to-day friends and stuff like that, they really aren't too far off from the way we talk to each other as friends. We call each other all sorts of names. We make insinuations about people's sexual proficiencies. Yeah.
That is the best way to put it. Proficiencies.
Or, in the case of some of us, the lack thereof. But, so yeah, there is a certain, it's got to be entertaining. And that's why we did that. So having us known each other all for over a decade each, and all having experience in role play of at least a decade each. It's 50 some years of role play experience in one stupid little podcast. So we kind of know what we're talking about, but we want to make sure that people can actually stick around and be entertained to hear that part of it.
I would definitely say that entertainment is a big factor. I mean, the amount of work you guys put into the skits, the funny infomercials, and the intro itself is actually pretty damn cool too.
Okay.
I remember the first. I feel. I shouldn't say I feel privileged, but I do feel privileged in a way that you let me preview it when you sent it to me. I was like, oh man, this is so cool. And so I definitely agree with you about the entertainment, but to me, that's kind of like the frosting on the cake, if that makes sense, because
Right.
majority of your stuff and the discussions that you have, it becomes the substance of the podcast, obviously.
Yeah.
And the topics that you guys suggest or that you guys get into, what I like about it is that there is some thought that goes into it, obviously, as well as you guys also take suggestions from the audience.
Mm-hmm.
I think the latest episode I listened to, I think 4 days ago, 5 days ago, the one about charismatic characters.
Yep.
That was a suggestion from a person's name who I forget. I can't remember. Sorry.
No, yeah, I can't quite remember either.
I know that I know that they listen to you guys on a regular too. But either way, sorry, person who suggested the idea that we forgot your name. It's my fault. I apologize. But anyway, that to me, I mean, you guys are connected to your audience in that way, and I think endearing yourself to that audience has also contributed to basically how you guys have been able to stay afloat for so long. I think.
Oh, it was Solitude, actually. Yes, our listener Solitude brought the
Solitude.
Charisma and being charming as a character up. Yeah.
Sorry, Solitude. My bad. We tackle our audiences differently. I'm much more, I guess I would say, intensive one-on-one, where you guys allow for them to have input, albeit it's at a level where it's a happy medium, where it's glancing, but they definitely have an impact and a ripple on the show.
Oh, yeah.
You allow them to drive the conversation. I think that is when you allow someone to drive the conversation as well as, present their viewpoints, because everything is becoming about, in my opinion, rather just imposing an agenda when it comes to having a conversation, which for some reason seems to be the zeitgeist of most conversations nowadays. But
yeah, we want everybody that comes on the show, and we welcome anybody that doesn't agree with what we're saying. We've had a few people that disagree, not like crazy strong, like they're gonna throw a remote through the window or anything like that, or start cussing, but we want to have a conversation about role play and the various things thereof. Conversations are good. Now, if somebody comes in and they're just trying to win their point, or they have their agenda has to win, or their view on combat role play, the way they do it is the only and best way to do it, and anybody else's way is idiotically stupid. I mean, we're going to hear them out. We're going to let them say their piece, but we're also going to let them say their piece to the point where they can hang themselves with their own rope and show that even if they have a fantastic and great way of doing that, their closed-minded and small-minded way of viewing it, and that nobody else can be listened to or heard, is their own downfall. That's how you cannot go into any discourse or disagreement or conversation with the agenda that your ultimate goal is to both absolutely they have to change their mind, otherwise you're never going to talk to them again, and that you have to win that conversation. You can't go into a conversation looking to win it. You have to go into a conversation looking to learn from it.
I agree with that sentiment wholeheartedly. I think that's more of the conversations that I see nowadays when it comes to having an actual conversation, that they're looking to win the conversation, have their viewpoint pressed upon you, which to me is more of
Yeah, and it's largely why I got kind of, I love RP hubs and forums and things, but one of the things that or in Discord is that frustrates me is the number of people that, obviously we have our opinions on our show. We tell it how we think it is. We will listen to you if you think otherwise, and we welcome that. But the number of people that will go on a forum and they will just tear into somebody about how wrong and how stupid or how inaccurate they are, or this or that, and there's they will not listen to any other viewpoint or any other reasoning that does not directly correlate to their own. They'll take all the likes and attaboys that they can get. But if somebody, even with a well-reasoned thing, that's may come in and say like, well, listen, maybe that combat, free-form combat is all you'll do because it's the purest form of combat. But at the same time, not everybody is capable of doing that, and they need those rolls. So you roll against each other. It's okay. You can roll against each other. No, free-form. That's the only way to go. Only, God, I actually had this happen before. Only the true elite of the role players do it. Well, freeform. Anybody else is a noob, kind of a thing.
True elite.
There was a guy in EverQuest 2 who would only, even he played a dark elf, and given EverQuest 2, they were clearly much more based off of the drow from R.A. Salvatore's Neverwinter stuff and Drizzt and all that. So he would only speak in character in the drow language when he was speaking Dark Elf, or Thexian, as it was called in that game. And even though other Dark Elves were there, and technically in character, we clearly would know the language. They're Dark Elves. Unfortunately, we're not people that have enough time to either have learned the language by heart or translate every damn thing they say into a translator and then copy and paste it back into the game. And when people would bring this up to them, he would say, well, those people just aren't premium role players like I am, or something along those lines. He had such an elitist attitude that I don't know how anybody could tolerate the guy. It was ridiculous. And I mean, given, especially in EverQuest 2, you could, I don't know if you ever played that game, but you could actually switch to multiple languages. You could learn other languages in that game. And if you didn't know the language, when somebody would type something out in Thexian, but you only knew Common, for example, it would come out with the letters are all garbled up. So it was gibberish to you, just like it is when you listen to any foreign language that you don't understand. It's just, I have no idea what you're saying.
And they have that sort of same deal in a few add-ons with, World of Warcraft, where if someone spoke Darnassian and if you were speaking the other language, if you couldn't understand Darnassian or something like that, they'd garble the
Yeah, it's kind of a cool feature. But at least, in too many beginning MMOs out there. But in EQ, when you spoke in Thexian, it would say, my character, Xanis says in Thexian, blah, 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 blah. Xanis says in Orcish, blah, blah, blah. It would tell you what language you were actually speaking. So there was really no reason for this guy to do that, other than be an elitist dickhole. And that's the only reason he was doing that. That, and I guess maybe he actually learned the entire drow language and needed to get out a little bit more. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know. Was Thexian an actual constructed language?
No. He basically just did it off the. There's the people have there is the drow language that's out there that kind of like Tolkien Elvish or Klingon. People have actually made the full translatable, speakable version of that, and that's basically what he was doing in type.
Well, I'm not a Trekkie, but I always thought Tolkien constructed the Sinedrin and the other.
Oh, yeah. No, there's Klingon has a full language. They actually had to hire at one mental facility. They actually had to hire on staff a guy that spoke Klingon because one of their patients had gone so far over the edge, he would only speak in Klingon.
At a mental facility.
Mental facility. Yeah. So they actually had to find someone that spoke Klingon to find out, to translate, basically, because by medical law, I guess they were required to have somebody on staff that would speak the language of whatever patient was there. So, yeah.
That's really interesting. Oh, I shouldn't say interesting, but
yeah, it's an old story, but people are, it was a mental asylum. So it's just, guy wasn't clearly all there, but it was an interesting fact that you had to find somebody else that spoke Klingon. But anyway.
In addition to doing the podcast, has it impacted the way you play MMOs at all, or has the two entirely been separate?
No, not really. I've always been a gamer at heart since, Atari, Nintendo, NES, SNES, all those that kind of stuff. I've been playing games since I was 5. So
this is just a natural extension,
right? Yeah,
of what you've been doing,
right? The role play, I've been doing it since First one I really remember was, I think I said last time, was the Matrix Online. That
Right.
was when I really got into it. And then EverQuest 2 was the extension of that when it finally came out. But sometimes about the only thing that's really changed, honestly, and it doesn't happen just to me, but Jazz gets it more because she does more random role play than I do out in Rift and Bar, is that she's had a few times where she's role playing with somebody, and she always, if it's a random thing, she'll at the end of it, she'll be like, "Hey, thanks, that was fun," if it was fun. And someone will say, "Oh, I had a great time. I love your show." It always, it's like, what? Oh yeah. Oh, thanks. It takes her a second to kick that in gear, because even with the show, she's still just role playing. We don't really. It's not like we're inundated with role play requests or anything like that, which is good, because it probably wouldn't be able to anyway, because she's got kids and all that stuff, and just does it when she's able to do it. But really, just the outlook of it it's still pretty much the same. The stories we try to come up with are the same. It does kind of help with some things to make sure it reiterates what we say in the show when we see it now. When I'm no longer part of Servants of the Tribunal. I left them because I wasn't having fun in the guild anymore. And as much as I love them and I wish them well, it was no longer someplace I was having a good time. So one of the things we've talked about on the show countless times, no matter how hard it is, if you're not having fun somewhere, don't stay. Move on. Because all you're going to do is continue to grow bitter and angry about maybe whatever's happening, or worse, spread it to other people and just carry on from there. And there's no point in doing that. You're supposed to be here having fun, supposed to be playing games, supposed to be creating stories and having a good time. And when certain, out of character or things just get overwhelmed and suck the fun out of it, there's no reason to push that and make yourself miserable for something that's supposed to be enjoyable and relaxing. So because of that, I was like, I did my best, and I did what I could to help out, and then just wished them well and moved on.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, how did you first come to the realization that, I'm just not having fun? Was it a slow, gradual sort of thing, or did you?
Typically, it's always a slow, gradual thing. I mean, it's a given. Sometimes there could be a major event, or blowout with somebody or something like that, or a group of people. This was sort of a slow crawl. Some of it, I think, has to do with, again, like I said, I'm not having as much fun with ESO, the game itself. And when I stop having fun with an MMO, I'm not in it as much, so I'm not role playing as much. I typically use the game mechanics to stay in the game until role play comes up, and then I'll go role play. So if I'm not enjoying the mechanics, I'm not in the game to be there when role play shows up. Excuse me, I had a hiccup there. So it's happened to me. It happened in EverQuest 2, which took a lot longer, and honestly, that was largely because Daybreak Games completely demolished the game and screwed it over. It happened Matrix Online, eventually Final Fantasy 14. It just, it's the progression of playing a game for months and sometimes even years on end that eventually you're going to hit a point. Everybody will. I mean, I guess unless it sunsets before that point happens. In that case, ask the City of Heroes folks, you're out of the game regardless. Not that they're still bitter or angry about that. Pretty sure they'd still string that guy up in the street if they could get hold of him. That shut that one down. But it's just, it's typically a slow crawl. And that's, again, for everybody, it's different. For me, if I don't enjoy the mechanics, Jazz, she can she plays the game and does the role plays first, and then eventually she'll hit the mechanic stuff. And I'm kind of the opposite. I've got to still enjoy the game and the role play both together. And when one starts to flag, typically the other starts to flag.
So it could also be where if you're not enjoying the roleplay, then enjoy the game.
Mm-hmm. It can, yeah. Especially if I hit like level cap, Final Fantasy 14. The roleplay was not bad. It's because of the game, kind of game it is. It's a very anime-esque in the roleplay. And don't get me wrong, I love anime. I can name off a whole bunch of them that I've Dragon Ball Z. Naruto. I love the big ones. I love the little ones, the classics, Cowboy Bebop, Akira, anything by Studio Ghibli. I never know how to pronounce it. I love anime, but at the same time, to be constantly in a role play world surrounded by people running with their arms out on their side and saying, Datai Boyo all the time or Kun on everything, it gets a little tiresome after a while.
Do the role players actually use Japanese honorifics?
Do you really want me to answer that? It was not an example that I was making up on the spot. I'll tell you that much. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Duly noted. I figured that might be the case because I think one of the races hails from like a Japan-esque land, and I think one of those classes associated the samurai.
Yep, the Ara, the half dragon people. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I even saw in character, not even joking, walking through, a senpai noticed me.
Okay.
Saw that in character.
Well,
right.
It was then Mikey knew he had enough. He decided to leave that conversation behind.
I have no problem with trust me. I like the cat girls in Final Fantasy more than I like the cat girls in, say, ESO. They're a little prettier, but give it just a couple ears and a tail doesn't really make that big of a difference. But even that, after a while, it's like, okay, you guys need to calm down. Just settle down a little bit. Quit with the ear twitching. I get it. You're nervous. There's other ways to describe nervous tics, the ear twitching and tail stuff. I get it.
Yeah. But for what it's worth, Final Fantasy 14 has a lot of RP elements to it that just make it much more endearing.
Oh, it's a great roleplay game. It really is, yeah.
Yeah, like how many different emos do you have for sitting differently in a chair? You know what I mean?
Right, and not to mention, given their housing is garbage, but if you're able to get a house, decorating it is lots of fun and it's really cool. Unfortunately, getting the house, because unlike ESO, where it's generated and instanced, it is literally in the world, and there are only so many plots of land. And once those plots are taken and those apartments are filled, you're done. So Balmong's been filled up since I think about 1989, which is strange because the game didn't come out until like the 2000 somethings.
Here's the thing: once I saw how some people had to wait buy a plot of land once a person, I think, sold it, because there's a cooldown, if I remember correctly, once a person moves out. And apparently the wait time is arbitrary. Somebody correct me on that. And so therefore I've heard stories where a person would have to wait 18 hours straight just to, make sure that
clicking on that button, clicking on that sign. Yeah.
God forbid if, you're sitting there 6 hours in and then you decide to go have a drink of water and you come back and somebody else has claimed it right before you. It's like, fuck.
Well, not to mention, even when when they would open up new areas or new giant wards, as they call them wards, entire guilds and really, really really wealthy and rich people would go in there and buy multiple plots. And then they would sell them for 4 or 5 times.
Oh, like a real estate thing.
Yeah, they would go in there and buy them for what it was. Say it was a 200 gold to buy the house and the plot. So then they would sell it for $1 million, or not 200, like 100,000 gold, and then they would sell it for $1 million or $2 million.
But they cater to that though. They solve that problem just a little bit by having that apartment system thing.
Yeah, but the thing was, even that is limited. There's only so many apartments, and once those filled up, they were done too. Yeah. Even the apartments, there's only so many, even though they were kind of instanced.
Jesus Christ, Square.
Right.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
And this is why I came to ESO.
Fuck.
I've got like 4 or 5 houses. One of them was given to me free, and it's huge. So, it's
serious.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it was that. Yeah. Didn't you get that? That prison is the one that's on the.
Oh, you're talking about ESO.
Yeah, in ESO. I meant in ESO. Yeah, that's why I came to ESO. I could get a house. It's a nice house.
Yeah, for sure.
I've got a lot of them.
It's interesting the way the housing system works in ESO, because it's nothing really new. If that makes sense. Like, I don't think there's anything.
But it's functional.
It's functional. Yes, I think that they went for functionality over ingenuity.
Yeah, it's It's not the best housing system, but I'd say it's probably top 3. I think one of the best was EverQuest 2, because not only when you put items down, you could shift up or down, their spatial relativity. You could turn them around, but you could also use a slider. So if you had a potted plant, you could make that plant super tiny, or you could
Or too super big. Yeah, a friend showed me like a screenshot where they had like a salad bar or something, and they took stacks of hay and they minimized it to the point where they looked like little croutons.
Yep.
Which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah, not to mention they had one thing, and given EverQuest 2 has had a lot more time on top of their housing than ESO, but I'm hoping eventually ESO, which it seems like they're getting into, is they will eventually bring in multiple kinds of walls of different shapes, sizes, and stone, which is something EQ2 did. So you could have, they had marble, they had white marble, black marble, red marble, blue marble, and they had walls, they had pillars, they had blocks, so that you could literally create a room in all sorts of dimensional sizes, because you could scale them up and down. People actually, Sib, she took a plot of land in a zone, a housing zone is basically what it was, and from the bottom up created a mansion just using in-game items. It was technically it was a housing zone, but it was literally just a small zone from the game that you could purchase to buy house as a house. And with that, she from the ground up created a mansion of marble pillars and walls and floors and stairs, bookcases, veranda. She made showers and bathrooms and bedrooms and closets and kitchens. She's really, I mean, even her stuff in ESO is absolutely fantastic. She if she gets it, if she if she gets her hooks into a housing decorating project, I've lost her for a good week or two solid until it's finished, and she'll be on there for hours every day, just meticulously doing the finest details. She's absolutely amazing at it when she gets her mind to it, and this was no exception. From ground up housing blocks that you could resize them, so the whole thing from top to bottom. And I think ESO has that capability and can do that, given some of some of the courtyards of like the Ebonheart Chateau and things like that. People off to the side, if they give us those materials, people will do amazing things in those zones. It's just a matter of, it takes time to slowly release that, and hopefully they'll have the forethought and insight to do that and not just blow it off.
I mean, not only that, but imagine how much of a sink it could be if they decided to just go ahead and give people the option to have plots of lands and then the building materials, so to speak. And it's such a naked money grab if they
Oh yeah.
decide to do it. But
Oh yeah, yeah, and to give it, and sure, they'd have to put everything in there so that it could be created by, by the players. But at the same time, on the back end, looking at it from a financial standpoint, purchase it all, $1 off, or 50 cents off of the Crown Store, just like you can do right now. There will be people that will throw hundreds at that. Most of them will be role players.
yes,
We all know them. I know that because we've thrown hundreds at it too in EverQuest 2, and we don't even play that anymore, but it's still sitting there somewhere.
I think they could. I mean, if they were really, really dedicated to it, and by they I mean role players, if they were really dedicated to what they could have done is they could have, with just that, they could start going ahead and just construct their own places to essentially dungeon instances to role play in. So, for example, right, I think Art created sort of back alleyway out of one of the homesteads, and he did that through a bunch of walls and stones and such, just to simulate the back alley of a series of back alleys throughout the city. And imagine what he could do if he had free range of that. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
possibilities are endless.
They sold the, what was that one they have? It's the Cove or something, where there's almost no building structures in that one at all. And you throw something like that out there, and you give people the materials to build stuff, and not just role players, but regular players love that stuff too. They really do. So there's plenty of money to be made, and it just depends now if they realize it and are willing to put in the time and effort to do it correctly.
I agree with you. I think that before any of that, though, however, and I'm sure, is that they need to increase their furnishing count on all of the houses. Lord knows how many people have been railing for that for the longest time.
And there's a solution from EverQuest 2 in that too.
What's that?
There was a certain, when you bought the house or guild hall, there were so many items you could have in it. And then there was also an item count extender that you could buy on the cash shop.
Ah,
Right?
right.
And then there was also another. There were two of them. I think one was for give you an extra 100 items or so, and that one you could actually buy in game for in game coin. And then there was another one that was like 200 or 300 that you would buy for. I don't remember what EverQuests were, but their version of crowns and real world money. It was, and it would unlock that. Is it shifty? Yeah. But at the same time, it wasn't ridiculously overpriced. It was, $5-10. And with the amount of space that it gave you, completely worth it. Whether, of course, there's all sorts of that the servers can handle it, blah, blah, blah. But that's not our problem. We just want more items. Give us more items or else.
See, now I'm not sure if they would be able to find a happy medium on prices, though. And the reason I say that is because we've seen some exorbitant amounts of crowns that they charged for some of the new recent housing, not items, the recent houses. Excuse me. I mean, I think it was like $150 just to get the Pariah's Pinnacle.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah. So I'm not. If they were to do it, great, but I'm not so hopeful on the prices. I don't think so anyway.
See, it's one of those things with if they price it at again $5-10 is pretty high, but at the same time, if they're gonna, I think they would you'll make more money priced at that because you'll get more sales than, and say if you did it at 20, 30, $40. I think people can, I could justify $10 in something I'm having fun with, no problem. 40 or $50 just for a couple extra item spaces, that's pushing it,
Right.
But we'll see if they ever get around to that. I know they've mentioned stuff with server architecture that they can do it. They're just waiting for stuff to make sure that it won't affect the rest of the game. And it's always one excuse after another, but then we have the consoles to worry about because they're also a hitch factor of how much they can work and load. But we're playing on computers. You guys just don't get that item then. Just screwed. So sorry. Buy the game for real, noob.
I was expecting a PC Master Race joke.
No, see, as those people piss me off. So no, I'm just gonna. And also, I own like every freaking console out there, so I can't really say I'm a Master Race when I have a Switch, a PS4, and an Xbox. So
well, I think they're all fun devices in their. I never understood that either, but
it's all
it
about
is what
games
it
for
is.
me. Yeah.
Moving on then. So, getting back to the program, I gotta ask: do you have any favorite episodes that you can list? No. Oh, I like them all equally. Bullshit.
No, I don't.
That works on your kids. It doesn't work here.
Yeah, no. Unlike my kids, which I still have favorites of. Oh wait, I'm not supposed to say that out loud. Everybody knows it. Let's see. I mean, like I know the ones some of the ones I've had the most fun on are the ones the ridiculous ones. The one where the two St. Patrick's Day episodes we've had where we would literally drink on the show on purpose. The first time we had to do it, every time you said RP or role play, you had to take a drink. And
oh my god!
So we were the entire episode. I was pretty to the wind. Jazz, however, she shit faced. She was shit faced. she could not. By the end of it, it was damn it, 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 damn it. Every time she would say it, it was just one after the other. It was progressively worse.
Good lord, I think I'd die of alcohol poisoning if I had.
Yeah, she learned that she brags often that she's very good with hard liquor, but you take a couple shots, you're good to go. She learned that with wine, it is not the alcohol content, however, the volume of 2.5 or of a bottle and a half of wine, however, absorbs through your stomach a lot more quickly. And it hits you a lot harder. And that was a hell of a fun episode. The last one we actually just past St. Patrick's Day, we got a list of crazy words that go along with feelings, like strange feelings, that realizations people have every day of like when you're walking down the street one day and you realize that every person you're passing has the same a life just as complex, nuanced, and complicated as yours is, that you know absolutely nothing about. Apparently, there's a word for that feeling. They're so far out there, I cannot tell you what that word is, but they're out there. So we did that. And we did it this time. If you ever had that feeling, you had to take a drink. Unfortunately, there were a lot of feelings and realizations that have clearly very strange words that we all did. So that was another fun one. I think the ERP one was really fun, I think, because it was obviously we had to wait till episode 69. But that was some people, when we're talking about it, some people got real upset, well, because it seemed obviously we were making fun of ERP a little bit, because we make fun of everything. If you ERP, I don't care what you do in your own time. I really don't give a shit. That's, but at the same time, we had to talk about it. And it was one of our most requested topics for probably since the show started. People wanted us to hit ERP, but it was also one we wanted to do correctly. So we waited plenty of time. So we got everything down. And also, again, episode 69 was 6 months away. So we just figured we'd hold on to it.
How many hours of thought did you put into that episode, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, quite a bit. We've got outlines for every single one of these shows. Every show we do has at least a page of outline, often a page and a half, 2 page, even sometimes even 3 of outline of the topic and the different points that we want to make and things that we got to hit. And that one, I'm pretty sure, was a 2.5 to 3-parter. And I think it was actually a 3-hour long episode, just because it went on as over our usual 2. But we wanted to make sure that we hit not just what the difference between what people think ERP is and what most people actually do in ERP, which is really something called MRP, which is mature role play that just happens to have sexual content in it. Whereas with ERP is basically just, as far as I'm concerned, it's just cyber sex. It's the things people do on Kick or Reddit and things like that. There's no plot, there's no story. It's just, insert tab B into slot A kind of a thing. That's and then you're done. You move on with your day. But with MRP, which is what a lot of people use ERP as in reference to, it comes about from story and character development, and there's feelings and emotions and romances and things like that. So there was actually quite a bit to do it, and then also how to not just if you're gonna do it, don't just type "oh baby, oh baby, oh baby" over and over again. It kind of would get a little stale and boring after a while. At least as far as our resident expert was, which was Jazz, because she's done a lot more of the ERP stuff than anybody else, because she's fairly open with that. But that was a really good episode as well. But the 2 drinking ones, that one, let's see. I don't know if there's been so many. The one we did, episode 50, not talking on politics and things like that. Why you shouldn't do it, and religion obviously as well goes in there, but why it really is kind of a no-go zone, and why, as much as you should be able to talk about that stuff, unfortunately these days, as you've hinted to earlier, is just not possible. That was a good show, but we've had a lot of really good ones. But probably those kind of stick out in my head as some of our better ones.
Moving right along, we broached this subject a few times. I guess we can jump into it now. And you said the right amount of seriousness when it comes to RP, or when it comes to even the show itself as well. It's always interesting to me. I look at some of the debates that go on, or discussions, and how I guess the word is heavily invested, shall we say, that they get into those discussions, to the point where they take themselves so seriously. It becomes a drama moment, essentially, or a Facebook moment. Let's go with that.
Right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. I like that. Facebook moment. I like that.
I'm not sure what it is. There's a paradox here. I don't know. Maybe you can put it better than I can, but you do need to be serious enough for the endeavor in order to go ahead and RP in whatever setting. But at the same time, if you go ahead and get too invested in it, the OCIC line blurs. People tend to be divided over some issue or some other thing. And
At the very core of what we're doing, it's basically we're writing a story. We're co-writing a book. We don't know where it's going to end. We don't know if it's going to end. We don't know where it's going to go all the time necessarily, unless you're one of those people that have to completely script everything that Ava fucking does. And please don't do that. That's awful. But you have to think of it like I think kind of just off the top of my head, if I had to describe role play as a book, it would be like the Harry Potter series. Now, that sounds a little strange, but at the same time, it involves some pretty hefty themes, life and death and things like that, loss, Snape and, Potter's mom, Dumbledore. I mean, there's the number of people that die in that series. It's actually deals with a lot of really heavy worldly issues. And at the same time, it's got silly spells that make, people spit slugs out of their mouth in some silly moments and things like that. So we're basically co-writing all this stuff. And at the same time, while you're dealing with those weighty issues and people that have using emo actually not in a negative term here, but emotional things and whatnot, you still have to be able to be lighthearted enough to spit out slugs at some time, or to have a Weasley moment, perhaps. And when people focus solely on only the kind of the real world and real transcendental and worldly sort of vibes of things, of everything's a serious moment. We could all die at any time. I could kill you 14 ways with this napkin and this toothpick just by looking at you if I felt like it. As opposed to the, Khajiit likes to rub sand in his fur because it feels good. Yes. There has to be a balance in that. And when someone starts to take themselves so seriously, or they stand up on that soapbox and they're going to die on that hill of whatever it is that they're believing in, it gets in the way of both the fun and joy of it, and you lose that balance. As soon as the balance of the role play is gone, that's when it stops. I think that's when it stops being fun. If you can't keep the fun of it in there, as well as some of the weighty issues, and remember that even though, and this is I think what a lot of people really get in their own heads about and put their own heads in their own butts about, even though we know you can't be killed off without someone else's permission. Nobody can die, clearly. Our characters are all immortal because we're not willing to put another 500 hours into another character just because of some stupid storyline. You can't have that mentality. You have to treat every roleplay situation as if you could die. And when you don't do that, it ruins everything. And I think a lot of people get that in their head. Well, my character can't be killed, so I can act like a complete douchebag to somebody. I as one individual in the Rift and Bar can act like a complete douchebag because nobody's going to be able to kill me technically in character to these 10 people I'm pissing off, and I can fight them all off. you've lost your audience. Something we say on the show all the time is that role play only works as long as the people you're playing that role with are participating and lend you the power of belief to make it real. As soon as you cross the line and people no longer lend you that power, that they're no longer too willing to go along with the fact that you're a lord or you're a Telvanni mage of 400 years. As soon as you cross the line into unbelievability and you lose the trust and the goodwill of those around you, you're done. And I think people forget that and they get on that hill and they're willing to die for it because they can't be killed technically, and they're done. You stop writing that story with that person. And once you stop writing the story, you're just kind of masturbating with yourself all day long. You're still writing all this great stuff in your head maybe, but it's because you've gone so far off the limb and you're so elitist as that like Thexian talker guy that people just stop playing them. They don't they take their ball and they go home and you're done. That's a long-winded way I think of trying to answer that question. It is a weighty one, like you said, but that's my best explanation.
I don't know if I agree with a few points that you said. I don't necessarily think of roleplay as a form of writing.
Really?
No, because I think that in and of itself takes it too seriously. Because in the end, what are you essentially doing besides standing there in front of your computer with a bunch of pixels displaying on your screen and, being in what you're having your suspension of belief going on in order to immerse yourself in the world? To me, it's just a grown up form of make believe. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's
No, you're
writing.
right. It's online cowboys and Indians, which I guess is not politically correct these days, but you get what I'm saying. It's online cowboys and Indians. But at the same time, what is it that writers do? These days anyway. They sit in front of a computer, they look at little pixels, and they type away at a screen and create imaginary worlds and situations and pretend just like we're doing, although they're only pretending with themselves as they have complete control over it. And that's why I really do consider it is a form of writing. It's a form of creative writing. It might not be the same as a novelist or a novella or whatever you might want to call it, but it is creative writing because if you don't have that creativity, and obviously if you don't have basic typing skills, you're not going to get very far. But you're just doing it with it's creative writing with other people. It's the same way some movie scripts and stuff are written, or sitcoms on SNL, or back when they were funny. TV shows are written that way. They have multiple writers. They sit in a room and they bounce jokes and ideas off of each other, and they create a story that then gets put down on paper and televised. Now, given ours is a little more freeform, but it's really not that different, at least as I see it. You can disagree. That's perfectly fine. I do see it as a form of writing, and there are plenty of, trust me, I see where you're coming from too, because at the same time, I've seen plenty of role players, and sometimes not even really good ones, that are like, well, I'm a writer, I've been published. Yeah, you're published on Amazon and your mom and your aunt bought the book. That doesn't actually count. I'm sorry. You're, I mean, if that's the case, I was published in my local newspaper for something I did on the 4th of July. That doesn't count as being a writer. I just happened to submit it because I thought it was enjoyable and people might like it. But I don't put that on a resume. So, but that's just how I see it. I do see it as a form of writing and authoring, kind of, in a way. It's just co-writing with a lot of other people and bouncing ideas off people, just in its very most raw and pixelated form as well. We just happen to have the avatars for our spatial movement instead of, actors.
Right. And I guess the biggest thing for me and the biggest delineation, excuse me, I would say to that is that, if you take away the game, right? Say to me, if it really was a creative writing exercise, which I think it can inspire creative writing exercises. Of course, people do shell out some stories about their characters on their guild forums and whatnot, or journals or whatnot. Of that I'm willing to acknowledge.
Right.
But if you take away the game, right, and if you have mostly just the writing, could you really stand on your own with that? And I don't think you could.
I think I will be honest, there have been some stories that I've been a part of. You are absolutely right. It would be absolute garbage. It'd be something like watching a fourth grade play that were forced to go to with your kids, and you're sitting there and you're watching them, and they're all adorable, singing "The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow," but you would not have paid for this. And there are, believe me, I've been there. There are other stories. That's just a for instance. I'm just making that one up off the top of my head. Trust me.
Right.
Kids are adorable. But if at the same time, there have been some stories that I've been privy to and part of that would make excellent books. Like if you just clearly you would have to clean it up and you would have to add descriptive scenes at sometimes because some descriptions of getting close to people don't actually happen in emotes. But there have been some stories that I've been part of with jazz and things like that especially when you role played with somebody as we did in EverQuest 2 for 10 years, a decade in one game. Imagine that. And the stories that went along with a 10-year-old character. There were some very complex and subtle storylines and some that looped around back on each other. One of my favorite things to do in role play is to leave dangling threads, to make an offhanded comment about a past history event or something in my character's life that I may not at the time even fully understand. But then a year or two later, something comes up in role play randomly and spontaneously that hooks perfectly to that thread from 2 years ago. It's like watching an episode, those that watch sci-fi Babylon 5, where something in season 1 paid off in season 4 years later. So things like that, they can be really complicated, and some people are very surface, and it's while it's fun, it's not going to win any awards or anything. And there have been some that I've been a part of that were very complex and very emotional. I mean, one of the things I will be bragging on myself because that's what I'm here for. I'm being interviewed after all. It's all about me. When my character Xanis in EverQuest 2 actually left when I was leaving the game and he died, people sent me tells afterwards saying how much they miss him and that they were physically crying in the real world because of the way I had exited him, and that he had to sacrifice himself on behalf of his wife and the guild, and he was the head of the secondary. She was the matron, but he was and he was married to her. But the way he left, he had to sacrifice his life, and he had to pay for the past deeds and evils that he had done in the first half of his life, and that meant that he had to go, and his life was forfeit in order to pay that debt off. And it brought people to physical tears. So in writing that, I created a physical emotional response in other people. And I know I know it sounds very self-gratifying, but I know I'm also not the only one. I've seen it happen in others. I've seen other people do storylines that really touched people and moved them or made them feel something deep down, which is part of where the seriousness in roleplay has to come from. If you don't have an attachment to your character or the characters around you, you end up like the guy in Riften that's just like, it's just pretend, dude, don't take it so seriously. But that's why you have to take it to a certain level of seriousness. Otherwise, if you don't have that emotional connection, why bother? And then at the same time, you do have to make sure you don't get so emotionally connected. You mix and you start, when somebody doesn't like your character, you say, why do you like him? Everybody should like him. You're supposed to like him. He's written that way. Then you got to back off a little. You've gone too far. But there is a happy medium in there.
I think we can agree that there is a happy medium, but the way that we perceive what that happy medium is,
yeah,
might be the contention.
Yeah, well, and that's fine. You don't have to. I don't have to agree with you. I don't think I disagree with you. I just think maybe I take it a step further, and that's fine.
Yeah,
You don't
and
have to agree.
yeah,
It's all good.
I guess what
I
I'm
mean, you're
trying to
wrong, but it's all good.
I think, well, to the point of being wrong, actually, I think,
I'm just teasing you, man.
I know, but I
Or
actually
am
wanted,
I?
are you? Maybe. Well, one of the things is that I'm always trying to do is I'm always trying to prove myself wrong, if anything. It's like if you can't stand to have your if you can't have your perceptions challenged, then you're not going to learn. But that's besides the point. I think the whole thing is that this is all happening in a game. Really, is what really ties the knot for me to not see it as a form of creative writing. I would say. Now, granted, of course, we use terms like storylines and plots and all that stuff to
Right.
define these long running threads, as you said, and yeah, that to me seems apt to use those terms. But if you were to say to me that this is like to make a comparison between the process of shelling out a screenplay between a team of writers and say a 3 month long plot, I would probably have to say I don't think so, Tim. Just because the fact that at the end of the day it is a game, whereas
Right.
in writing you're coming out with, I guess, a product of some sort for consumption.
Yeah. Well,
Inevitably comes out at the end of all writing projects, I suppose.
right. Well, and see, it's the same thing with this. It's just not obviously it's not published, and the difference is we're doing it out of we're not being paid to do it. We actually
Is
do it
it
out of
though?
love.
Because who's really consuming it? It's really you yourself. I mean, the heart of RP is vanity, escapism, and imagination.
Yeah, but even some of my favorite writers that Stephen King, obviously everyone knows that. Lesser known ones, Mark Tufo, who does a series called Zombie Fallout and things like that. But
I think
almost
you mentioned
every
him once in the last
I
episode.
did, yeah, I
Yeah.
absolutely love his books. He's a fantastic writer, a very very funny, creative writer. But one thing almost every writer will say is that you don't write for your audience. You don't write what you don't write for the others. You write for yourself. So even if you're only writing for you and one other person in the game, you're still writing it and you're still using a creative process. You're still going through all those different things. So that's why I think that's why I do think it's a form of creative writing. Now we could actually I think we're probably nitpicking over terms that maybe don't exist yet. We both mean the same thing, but I'm using a term for what it is, and you're trying to think of a term that maybe doesn't exist because it is a form of you have. It's a form of creating writing. Could you admit that much at least? I mean, it's a form of it. I don't.
Define creative writing for me.
Um, that we're being creative and we're writing.
That's
I mean,
of course, yes. No,
right. I mean, at the very basic, we're given we have just like any world though. Even though we're borrowing the rule set from Elder Scrolls, or EverQuest or Star Wars, just like in Doctor Who, there's no Doctor Who video game, so I can use this one. Even in Doctor Who, and that one has some pretty big damn gaps in what they can do. I mean, literally almost, and they have time and space to deal with. And even in that show, they still have rule sets. So rule sets are wherever they come from, they still exist within the universe. So while we are confined to the universe and the rule sets and the lore of whatever MMO we're playing, we're still writing and creating within that rule set. And because we're using the interactions we have with other people and that we're having to come up with our own character, we're literally, unless you're, you know, creating using characters, which you shouldn't do in the thing, which is again, as Deadpool said, it's just lazy writing. You're coming up with all these stories and you're making it up within the bounds and confines of the rule sets so that you have to you create and expand on the world, at least in your own little small tiny community and corner of it. So that's I don't it's still creative writing. I mean, you're literally I mean, you're typing it out. That's writing. You're describing what you're doing. You're expressing emotion. You're making other people feel. You're having a good time with it. It's kind of it's a form of creative writing. Now, maybe it's not the form you would take. Clearly, I don't think how to role play in MMOs is going to be a college class yet. but maybe it is. I would consider it still some form of creative writing. I could be wrong, but that is, in my personal opinion, that is absolutely what we do every time we log in and we start interacting with other people as another character.
I think you'll find that majority of the audience will probably agree with you and probably call me an asshole. I think because
Well, I mean, but are they calling you an asshole because of that, or just because, you know?
because no, to me, I take it to a much more juvenile extent. In fact, I'm probably going to get a lot of shit for this analogy, but the way I look at it is like it's like playing with your action figures, so to speak, right? Like
Dude,
you have your option to create
I
your avatar, right?
right.
Which is to some extent the ideal of your beauty standards, because let's face it, and this is where I expose my ego. With the exception of myself, everyone creates a character that is somewhat too attractive in their own eyes, so to speak.
Mhm.
And the reason I exclude myself from that is because I believe this world and any world to be horribly, horribly, horribly ugly and grotesque. And no matter what you think about beauty, in the end, it's all subjective. There is no overarching truth of it all. Maybe save for symmetry, but that's a conversation for another day.
I don't see any toothbrushes or in-game bathrooms. I will point that out. Yes, you are
Yeah,
correct.
I mean, I don't know. Isn't there a chamber pot furnishing?
I don't know. Even then, still just a chamber pot, still shitting just in a pot.
Yeah,
No, and you are probably right that you are going to get some shit, but at the same time, you shouldn't, because it's your view of it. That's how. I mean, okay, so here's the deal. So even while you may not take it as to the point where I do, or somebody that might be agreeing with me does, you still don't treat it like that one dude I was telling you about was like, dude, it's just pretend, bro. Don't take it so seriously. Like, you don't do
right.
that. So you do still take it to a certain level of seriousness. Now,
Of
maybe
course,
you don't
you're
take
right.
it to the collegiate level, but
No,
you
and
do take it seriously. So, and that's really all you need. I mean, you're doing a an interview show with
I
people
was
that
gonna
role
point
play,
that paradox out.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
says the guy who's doing the podcast who looks at it like
right.
before playing action figures. What the fuck are you talking about, dude? It's
Right.
like,
And by the
well,
way, up until I was 14 years old, and the only reason I stopped playing with action figures and Legos, okay, I still play with Legos. I have a Transformer, or I have a Voltron set behind you. But pretending to be the Lego characters was because nobody would play with me anymore. So I get that. Trust me, I get that. Screw you, Jared.
I mean, that's how I look at it. I think it's definitely mature though. I won't deny that there is a sense of maturity that you need to have,
Right.
definitely for
Right.
RP. Of that, I think we can all agree on.
Absolutely. That's cool.
What is it about the maturity and the level of severity that seems to come with it? You know, does maturity equal severity? Does that make sense?
I mean, maturity technically doesn't equal age. So, I mean, I've met some 50-year-olds. I'm like, I wouldn't trust you with a paper bag. I don't know that you wouldn't try to put it over your head and breathe in deep constantly. Mm-mm. And meanwhile, there's other 20-year-olds. I'm like, you are so smart. You have no idea how to talk to human beings, do you? No, you're way too mature for your age, and you have no connection with the rest of humanity. And then there's me. I don't like anybody. You're all stupid.
Do you hate yourself the most?
I do. I mean, if I don't, someone else will, and I'm gonna win this game. No. But it's. I mean, you have to have, obviously there has to be a level. It goes back to balance. With role play, it comes back to balance. You have to have a certain level of both maturity and respect for other people you're there with, and immaturity, that as a almost turning 40-year-old man this year, I still basically play with online dolls. I mean, that's to make your own point. It is in that kind of vein. But at the same time, it's what I choose to spend my money and my time on. I feel creative. I feel
Not only that, but there's also rules of etiquette, structure,
right. There's a structure to it.
organization. Yeah.
And what's the difference between, it's the difference between me doing this with other people online as opposed to enjoying a football game or a soccer game, if you call that a sport, a baseball game with other people that are rah for my team. And, I'll go out to, Cowboy Stadium and paint myself blue and silver,
You're a Cowboys fan?
no, I'm not. I'm just
I was gonna be like, dude, really?
I,
I would never pay. I wouldn't beg you for a
I,
Cowboys fan if it were.
no,
But, yeah.
I'm not a football anything fan, really. I'm not even a sports guy, but I mean, I love when they get people for offsides and high sticking in baseball, but what can I do when they're at the quarter yard line? But it's everybody has their own thing, whether it's building model airplanes like my dad loved to do, or my stepdad, my real dad, he built floating model boats that would shoot uh of carriers and destroyers of ships that would shoot BBs at other balsa wood model boats until you sunk one another. I mean,
That's
they'd
pretty
spend
cool.
hundreds of hours on this boat to take it out for one day and shoot the shit out of somebody else's other hundreds of hours of work boat. You know, that's what they did. Ours, for us and our hobby, instead of, playing with balsa wood and sniffing model glue all day long, we sit at a computer, we stare at a screen of a very attractive, more than likely a busty avatar, and pretend to be another person in another world altogether. And is one wrong over the other? No, they're just totally different.
Let me ask you this: has there ever been a point in your role play where you got? It sounds like there has been, but has there ever been a point in your role play where you got really emotionally invested? Where once you were done, you were just kind of like, okay, I need to step away from the computer for a moment just to come back to the world. Yeah, it's just and drained because it was intense, that sort of deal.
Yeah. I mean, I know I'm not the only one because I've asked because I wanted to make sure I wasn't some sort of fucking nightmarish freak. I do enjoy combat role play. I enjoy duels. I enjoy both duels, basically in every form. I enjoy game mechanic duels as long as it's somewhat even footing, because of level 2 versus a level, CP level of 579 is not a fight. So, but level, I've enjoyed that. I enjoy duels where you're rolling. I enjoy duels where it's free form. There's been plenty of them in role play where, like the stakes are really high. Like, maybe somebody instigated it and you're in the middle of a combat thing and it's up to the rolls and you don't know how it's going to turn out, and given I'm good with however it will turn out. I'll take the blows and I'll take the lumps. I may not be happy about it if I lose. I mean, who doesn't? Nobody likes losing, but that you're so invested in that how things can change for your character, or if you lose face in front of people, that if the rolls go badly or they go well, that it's just exhausting afterwards. And I know I'm not the only one because I've asked. So at least I'm not alone in that. But yeah, I've come away from role play just mentally and sometimes even almost physically exhausted from it. And at least I hope I'm not alone. But anybody out there is listening, back me up a little bit, please. Don't, otherwise I'm going to be in a white jacket that, ties in the back. But yeah, it's happened several times, both for combat, like I said, the story with Xanis, when people were crying, I teared up a little bit too, just because I was having to give up on a 10-year-old character because I just wasn't having fun with the game anymore, so it was time to move on. But yeah, I mean, I'll freely admit, I'm not so manly that I won't admit that I shed a tear now and then, but
That was a good Sean Connery
yeah.
impression, by the way.
Thank you. I'll take famous titties for 500, Alex. But no, yeah, I've been emotionally, yeah, I've come away just exhausted from it. Why have you not?
I guess no. Well, no, I haven't never had that happen. But no, what I'm trying to say is, has it impacted you in a way? Certain, like how when Xanis died. So
Hmm.
that sort of that sort of deal is what I'm trying to get at. I'm hoping you could talk to me about it. Where
Yeah, like in the like it transferred from game to real world.
yeah, it had an emotional impact.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, it was again, this might be where our difference on our earlier discussion comes from, where I see it as a form of writing and maybe you don't. I've maybe you just I've had a character, you know, I've at least one. Xanis was my all-time favorite character. 10 years on one character. That's a long time. It's a ridiculous amount of hours spent in that game. It's almost embarrassing to do slash played in there. But I had such a connection to him. I mean, he had grown, he'd evolved, he'd gone bad, he'd gone good. You know, is everything you'd expect from I don't know, umpteen seasons of something like Supernatural, where things go back and forth and stuff has to continually evolve and everything like that. It was very complex. There was a lot of history. There was people that had come in and out of his life and my life. That was the other connection you have to think of is I had met characters. One of them, Shard. She was from Seattle. I don't know who she was. But she was a good friend. And through the course of roleplay, eventually she vanished or had given up on the game, whatever it was. But she was a good friend. I loved role playing. I have a lot of fond memories of that person. So it's not just it's characters that had gone in and out of life, as well as people that had gone in and out of my life that I had known from meeting them through the character. So when you're stepping away from that, even if some of them are still in there, you're also, when you leave the game, you're stepping away from all of that. And after 10 years, a lot of those people mean a lot to you. So yeah, there's definitely a real world sort of sense of loss. Like you've maybe not, it's not as, I'm not going to say it's like losing a family member, but it's maybe like losing a pet, like a well-loved pet.
I mean, to your book example, right? Sorry, not book example, but to your creative writing example, right? I mean, how many different people, teary-eyed, slobber-faced all over,
Mhm.
when Snape died, you know, after
Right?
reading. Spoiler alert, I guess.
Oh my god. Can't believe you just ruined that for everybody that's seen the movie, book, and probably read it on the internet 1,000
That has
times.
been out for nearly, what, 5, 10 years now?
Oh, I don't even I think it's actually longer than that now. Isn't it almost 15 years? I don't
I don't
remember.
know, when did Deathly Hallows Part 2 come out? I don't know. Been
Oh, I was
forever.
just talking about the book. I read the book, so I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know
yeah.
about I mean, the book was so much better than the movie, you know? Fuck those
They
people.
tend to ruin a lot for people.
Right, yeah, they do. But no, there is always there is an emotional investment, especially maybe not everybody gets there. Like with Tarvala, which was my character in Servants. I mean, I liked playing her. She was a lot of fun. I had a lot of great memories for her. But when I had to step away from her, it wasn't that big a deal. Like I didn't really like have a bummer of a day afterwards or anything like that. So it might be a rarity. It might be one of those things that only happens with like your first great character, you know. If people and your first MMO on top of that. Those two things combined, given it EverQuest 2 wasn't my first MMO, EverQuest was, but it was the longest running I had played for sure, as well as the character. So there's definitely a rose-colored glasses sort of a thing when it comes to that, and there's an attachment that comes along with it. When you leave that behind, it does it's kind of like finishing a book series where it leaves a hole where that, journey was. I can only, people that watched or not watched, but read Lord of the Rings, the trilogy back in the day when it first came out, and they follow these characters all the way on this trip and on this and that and then that, and then they get to the end and it's over and there's no more story after that. It's done. Or Harry Potter, which case they probably should have left the story done because Fantastic Beasts is not that great. But it's also a prequel, but
I
still.
mean, it's a cash grab. That's how.
Right, yeah. It's I like Johnny Depp, great. Can we be done with casting Johnny Depp as every strange character in the history of movies and cinema? We're done. Move on. Find someone else. It's okay. There's other actors. That's the point. And I like Johnny Depp. Don't get me wrong. Any 50-something-year-old man that can accessorize with 4,000 bracelets on his arm deserves your respect. But there's other actors out there to play Grindelwald. So it's just you gotta there. It just might be one of those things where it's one of those there's only so many times that you can have that sort of really deep attachment because there are different levels of attachment. that you can have with a character. You might be attached to your character, but if it goes away tomorrow, meh, no big deal.
So here are two questions for you, right? What factors do you think go into, a long-term character investment? Time is obviously one of them, given the fact that, you RP'd Xanus for 10 years. What others would you think there would be?
It's probably the two other things off the top of my head would be, one, a love of the world. One of my favorite worlds is Norath. EverQuest takes place on is Norath. I knew the gods, I knew the lore, I enjoyed it, loved it. I knew almost everything about it. It was really good. It was a lot of fun. It gave a great backdrop and a stage. The other thing would have to be the people around you in your guild. Makes a big difference. Those two things together, the people that you're able to interact with on a daily and weekly, monthly, yearly basis, create your character. Because while you do the majority of the creative process, everything that you come up with is based off of your interactions with other people doing a similar creative process on their end, and multiply that times, it's the, and so on 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 and so on. Because there's just so many people that you might meet. One day you're talking with Yunfei, the next day you're talking with Vakarina, an hour after that you're talking with Shard, Vinka, and we name it off clearly people I remember. And all those little interactions, they mold and fold your character based around the idea of what you had originally created. But it's kind of, to go with a analogy here, it'd be like taking a chunk of granite or marble, and then having Da Vinci kind of poke and prod and carve out the character that's underneath that. It's hidden in that block of stone. And those people all around you are all the little dinks and pinks and pricks of carving the full scope of that character out for you. Well, you see it in your mind's eye, as Da Vinci had said. You see the block of stone and you see what's hidden within it. Those people are the chisel and the hammer that help mold and bring that character to life. That might be a little deep and a little much for role play, but honestly, that's the best analogy I could come up with off
No,
the
I
top of
see
my
the
head.
analogy that you're
Yeah.
coming with, and I think to summarize your point, I would say, so if we had to come up with four and simplify it, I would say time, I
Mm-hmm.
would say the world, that being the lore and the environment in which you're in. I think that if you're
Right.
not enjoying the world, then obviously it'd be very
Right.
hard to enjoy yourself. Then you also have the friends that you RP with, because of course RP is very much a social activity.
Right. Otherwise it's creative writing.
And finally, you have what's the word I'm looking for? Interactions. So those four, and that in and of itself, I guess I don't know, I don't think you could create an equation out of that, but I guess those are the ingredients that you would need to be well invested into a character, I think.
No, I think yeah. Saying that's actually a good. I think those four ingredients would be a good way, because salt to taste. Add them as each individual finds them tasty. People like things more savory. Some people like things more sweet. Some things like sour. So you add and take away as each individual might need to with those four things, and that's probably what you'll come out with. Yeah.
Okay, so is now 11:24 your time.
Mm-hmm.
We have, I think, a pretty good episode behind us.
Mm-hmm.
As always, we'll go ahead and exit the same way I always do with every other episode, with a 10-item questionnaire.
Oh
First
yeah,
champion. Of course. You remember
I
this.
remember.
Yeah.
I'm
Maybe your
curious to see
answers
if
might
my
have changed. Who
answers are
knows?
consistent or not.
So, a 10-item questionnaire, first created by Marcel Proust, then used by Bernard Pivot, and then finally made mainstream thanks to Mr. James Lipton.
And then brought and continued on by Sir Mikey.
I don't know about that, but
No, don't sell yourself short.
I'm pretty short though.
Yeah, plenty of other people will do it for you. There's no reason for you to do it.
But I'm 4'9" though.
Yeah, 4'9" of awesome dwarven fury.
Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1. What is your favorite word?
I remember this one. Barracuda. And yours was no, yours was one of your favorite was my least favorite. Cunt.
That's favorite curse word, but that's besides
Yep.
the point.
That's right.
Number 2. Number 2. What is your least favorite word?
Cunt.
Number 3. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Oh man, hentai. I mean, really, just at the heart of it is just it. Really, no. Creative, spiritually, honestly, just family, friends, wanting to and wanting to enjoy life. Be frank, doing something that also will bring joy to other people. If I can do that, it's literally one of the mainstays of the show is to entertain people on RPM radio. So bringing happiness and joy and information to other people.
Number 4. Opposite of that, what turns you off?
I think I remember this one was sock puppets. Yeah.
Number 5. What is your favorite curse word?
Maybe I think I actually said fuckwad the first time because that's the first thing that's coming to mind. Recently, dickhole is actually a pretty good one. That's more of an insult than a curse word, but it does have cursing in it. So there's that.
Number 6. What sound or noise do you love?
The sound of my wife's laughter.
That's what you said last time.
It is. I know.
Yes.
Because there's nothing more I enjoy more than sorry. I swear to God, I hope she doesn't listen to this. There's nothing more that I love more in life that when I have made her so laugh, I hear the phrase, "I almost peed." If she hears this, she's gonna kill me. But my goal in life is to while we're working or something like that is to make her laugh so hard that she pees herself and has to go home. I've come very close.
Number 6. Or sorry, I already said number 6. Number 7. What sound or noise do you hate?
Nails on a chalkboard, forks and knives on a plate. It makes every nerve in my very being and soul vibrate in a horrible way.
Number 8. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I think last time I said voice acting, and probably still voice acting. I do enjoy our stupid little skits and the Sean Connerys and the really I appreciate the kind words, but the really bad, the Christopher Walkens. Oh.
Now, look who's selling himself short now.
I know. But you have to realize I hear it through my own reverberating skull, so I only hear it as it comes through in my ears. I just hope that it sounds better on your end. And I know there's some people listening like now, right? No, it doesn't. It sounds off. And you know what? Screw you.
Nuts to them, I would say.
Right. Nuts. Wow, 1950. Thank you for showing up. I'm glad you made it.
I don't know. I can't remember which battle it was, but in World War II, there was this German officer that had this town surrounded, and they were like, the Germans were like, "We want you to surrender," and the Americans, corporal or whatever, the commanding officer, just gave him one word, and he's like, "Nuts."
Yeah. Okay. I have a great story for that. Do you remember a show called Jericho?
Yeah, I do.
Do you remember what happened? They told that story in the show. So when the show got canceled, before it actually had its proper ending, do you know what the fans of that show did to the studio?
No, what'd they do?
They send them thousands of pounds of nuts in order for them to, and it worked. They actually got a half season to finish out the story of the Jericho show.
Wow.
Yeah. But they said literally that, because I actually think it was.
This is an aside, and I don't think many people, I think some people might care about this conversation, but it's interesting to me the behavior of fandoms at times because they can get really, really poisonous, but when they get together to make something happen, it's also beautiful.
Beautiful, beautiful. Because of all the protests to do, because even the actors in there, because it was, I actually think one of them was Luke Perry, who's just recently passed away.
He died,
Was
really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, he died of a stroke at 50 something. Yeah, he passed away a
Wow.
couple weeks ago. Massive stroke. But I think he was in that show, and him and the other cast characters, that like, of all the things that they attached on it, was one little story in one episode of something that was supposed to be inspirational, of the nut story, and they latched onto that and sent all those peanuts to the studio in order to protest it. He said they didn't send threatening letters, they didn't send this or that, they just sent bags of peanuts. You know, with and I think all the words that they wrote was just nuts, you know, and it worked. It worked. It worked, you know. But unfortunately, it didn't work with Firefly. Just saying, Fox, screw you. I don't care what else you might do that's great with. I mean, the X-Men. It's. I love the X-Men, and you guys are kind of up with the Dark Phoenix, which is my favorite character. You're still screwing it up.
Are you an X-Men fan?
Oh, I've got a tattoo of the Phoenix on my forearm. Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Who's your favorite mutant? Beyond top 5, actually, since there are way too many.
Oh man, top 5. Gambit would be one of them. Rogue would be another.
Okay. I very much enjoy their romance. I think their romance is probably more compelling than Jean's and Scott's, I would say.
Very much so, yeah. In fact, actually, that's why over Jean and Scott on our cake topper, and for our marriage ceremony, our cake topper was toys of Rogue and Gambit on our wedding cake, and we had pictures of Rogue and Gambit. And on one of our anniversaries, I actually painted a 2x3 picture of a scene from between him when he was about to kiss her, and he just said, "Trust me." It was one of her favorite scenes that we found of pictures. So I painted a big thing for my wife of that. It hangs above our bed, oddly enough, which is weird, but it doesn't look bad. But yes, Rogue and Gambit. So Jean Grey. Let's see. Shoot, what's her name? She's actually in the Gifted right now. She was from the Age of Apocalypse. Blink. I absolutely loved Blink. From the Age of Apocalypse. She was the one that create portals and through the little time spirit thingies, for anybody out there wondering. Number 5. It's been a while since I've but read the X-Men comics. So I'm going from like the early 90s to the mid 2000s.
Wolverine.
I will admit, I do like Wolverine, but not top. Deadpool's not an X-Man, so I can't. Regardless of how many times
He's got a
I've been part of him.
weird history. He's got a weird history.
But he's not really. I'm not considering him an X-Man. Oh, Cable. Cable was my other one.
Okay, all right.
I knew it was connected to Deadpool. But yeah, even before all the Deadpool stuff and the movies and stuff like that, Cable has always been one of my favorite. Even his alternative X-Man, Nathan Gray, when he came from an alternate timeline from the Age of Apocalypse that didn't have the technovirus. This just shows how nerdy I really am. I'm not just making this bullshit up. I know all of this crap.
Do you have a favorite X-Men storyline besides Age of Apocalypse?
I was gonna say, other than Age of Apocalypse, obviously it'd be the Dark Phoenix saga, the original Dark Phoenix saga, not the crap that they've come out with since, which kind of muddies it a lot. But yeah, the original Dark Phoenix and Jean Grey. That's my all time. I'm looking at a poster of X-Men Phoenix End song right above my desk. I mean, it's the art I've got most of in our house. Yeah.
What did you make of House of M? Because that's only the really X-Men storyline that I read.
It was good.
That and Days of Future Past.
They were trying. Days of Future Past was fantastic. Yeah.
I blame the movie for that one, but they
Right.
did okay with it.
They did as good as they could do. But yeah, House of M was basically them realizing, I think, that they had gone too far with the mutant population and they were trying to backtrack on it a little bit, which is why it ended with, I don't remember, the majority, 99% of the mutant population just up and gone. Except for obviously all the main characters that everybody knew. Those guys stayed. There was no there was no Wolverine saying, "Hold me, Mr. Stark, I'm scared" moment. you know,
Hard cut.
right? Yeah, they weren't doing that. But no, House of M was good. Again, I was kind of almost out of the comics by that point. So like the Phalanx
Mm.
saga back in the '90s when the with the technovirus guys and the race and all that stuff.
Did you ever get to read Old Man Logan? That's very recent, actually.
They were, and I actually got those. I didn't buy that physical comics. I've got probably 2 or 3 thousand comics up in my upstairs boxes because I'm that kind of nerd. But the Old Man Logan, I actually got on Kindle and read through all of those. They were very enjoyable. I really, really, I've always liked that futuristic, dark. That's why I liked Age of Apocalypse. I loved that dark sort of what if, which is why I'm thrilled to have found out that Marvel Disney has decided to do a TV show of Marvel based on the What If comics, doing what if stuff in a TV show, supposedly.
Well,
That's what I've heard. That's they said that they've actually come out with they've greenlit a What If Marvel TV show.
that'd be interesting to see.
Yeah,
I
I'm
wonder
looking
how that
forward
would
to
be
it.
panning out. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see.
Old Man Logan was definitely.
I liked the dark future. It had for me it had the Age of Apocalypse feel
Right.
to it that I really enjoyed with Age of Apocalypse. Seeing characters as you had known them, but with horrible, horrible circumstances. Seeing the Hulk all gone to shit and part
He
of a
does some fucked up stuff.
right eating people and gone awful and Wolverine trying to have been just a family man and a farmer and all that stuff. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy that quite a bit.
Okay. Moving on from that big tangent, which
Right.
I'll probably just leave or
Right.
whatever. You guys
But
get
it's
it.
still a fun conversation.
Yeah, of course. Now, number 9. What profession would you not like to do?
Oh man. Having seen Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe, I would have to be, say, the one with where you put a straw in a turkey and you extract semen. I would say that is a job I would not want to do.
I got to look that episode up later.
I'm not even
It's
making it up,
funny.
man. The worst part is it's kind of like siphoning a gas tank because you kind of use your
God.
mouth.
The image is okay. Thank you for that. I really didn't need that.
Yeah, well, good night sleeping with that tonight.
You could have just left it at that.
Yeah,
No, you had to
you're
take it.
asking the questions, man. I'm just answering. These are your questions. You got no one to blame but yourself and the laundry list of people that came up with them first.
Number 10 for our final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I remember what I said the first time, so I'm going to change it up this time. What are you doing here?
Apt. Very apt. What are you doing here?
Did we leave the door unlocked? Hey, security.
And that marks the end of this episode. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Ash, thank you so much for coming on the show once again.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Like what you listen to? Well, here's an obligatory promotion designed to make sure you tune in for more. Click that subscribe button, hit the like button, and leave a comment if you're feeling generous. If you'd like these episodes on the go, you can also download them directly from rphq.org. RPHQ offers roleplayers a wide variety of resources to draw from to enhance their own role-playing experience. Want to roleplay a blacksmith but you have no dang clue how dang blacksmithing works? RPHQ. Trying to figure out how to make your players fear you in your tabletop game? RPHQ. Need some online links to dice rollers? RPHQ. Stop on by and see what you can learn by perusing the site. Thanks so much, folks. Stay frosty.